Right.
Kind of split in the middle. I like that.
Yeah.
Ryan Porth, how are you?
Doing good. A little salty this morning.
Are you?
Yeah, I had Rangers minus 9.5 on the sports book.
Yeah, just missed it.
And just missed it. It was a bad beat.
That was a tough one last night for Philadelphia Flyers. Down 9-0 to the New York Rangers after 2 periods.
What was the final? I didn't.
It was 9-0.
It stayed 9-0.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's always
lots of Twitter jokes on that one last night.
That's always one of my issues, like in the NHL. Games like that happen so rarely, and it seems like once it gets out of hand like that, the team with the lead, just kind of stops. Pour it on. Get to 12 or 13.
Well,
Get to double digits.
Well, those are the games where you help yourself individually.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the games where you pad your stats.
Yeah.
You have a team that's just done. Load up.
Probably doesn't speak well of the Rangers coaching staff last night either, because their entire coaching staff missed the game because of COVID. They go out and score 9 goals without their coaches.
Well, there are already a lot of doubts about their coaches.
Yeah. Not there, and all of a sudden the offense just comes alive.
Yeah, the coach plus minus isn't very good right now.
I'll tell you this, your call of Matthias Ekholm going to the Flyers, they could have used him last night.
Would have been 8-0 and not 9-0.
They weren't defending very well.
Add to the price.
Add
a prospect.
Had somebody tweet me last night, and they were like, one of 2 things is going to happen because of this. Either Philadelphia is going to go all in and go get Matthias Ekholm, or they're going to completely take themselves out of the sweepstakes. One of the 2.
They're just
like,
done.
all right, we'll see you.
They're out of there.
It was not a good look for the Flyers last night. But, hey, 9-0 in the NHL, you'll take that. Anytime you can get some high-scoring games, I'm 100% here for it. We'll talk about a little bit more hockey coming up later in the show. As I said, Todd Richards, Predators assistant coach, joining us at 7:30. The Predators taking on the Florida Panthers tonight. So the rough roll in terms of the top 3 teams in the Central Division continuing for the Predators on the road. The road trip that seemingly never ends. Still going down in sunny Florida. So we'll talk to Todd Richards at that time. But, Joe, some more news on the Titans yesterday. So we talked about yesterday, obviously, Adoree Jackson being cut, Dennis Kelly being cut as well, and then wondered what could be next for the Tennessee Titans. And a guy we've spent a lot of time talking about, and I think most of the time just considered to be an afterthought based on what we thought his value could be on the open market, was Jayon Brown. So I've got to say, when I saw this contract yesterday and the deal that Jayon Brown signed to come back with the Titans, I was floored. 1 year, $5.25 million. I mean, there were numbers floating around out there, at least on the dollar amount side of this, that were double that, at least. And the fact that he's back in the fold with the Titans for 1 year and for $5.25 million, number one, it's great news for the Titans because I think Jayon Brown's a really, really good player. And number two, I was just floored that was what the value was, or the contract was, that Jayon Brown signed.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I think it's a big deal for the Titans. I mean, it's hard to imagine. And I know you could look at it and say, yeah, but David Long was ready to step in. It's like, yeah, well, it's the NFL. So if you have any depth at any position, that's probably good for you. And this team doesn't have depth at a lot of positions. So now it does, again, at inside linebacker. And he's one of their best playmakers. He's their best coverage linebacker. I thought he was actually starting to really play well, even for him, for his level, before he got hurt in that Baltimore game. So maybe the injury thing is part of it with him. The last 2 years have been he's had, well, in hockey terms, upper body injuries. I know he's had one of those was a shoulder for sure, at least one time. I don't know, but it's also where we are with the cap, with everything. So this makes me think of another guy I think now would be at the top of my list for the Titans. Now that Curtis Samuel has gone to the Washington football team, like everybody's going to the Washington football
Apparently
team.
So.
So like a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, is he gettable at a good price, or is he going to be like back for a year with the Steelers? You know, I think some of these guys, like Rashard Higgins, there was, Porth's guy, he just went back with the Browns. And did he sign a bigger deal, or did he just go 1 year flyer?
1 year.
Yeah, there you go. So we're seeing a lot of these. Well, just go back with your team where you know you fit in, where you know your role, and go back out next year. And so Jayon Brown will be probably signing with someone else next offseason. Maybe not, but probably. The Titans probably aren't going to be looking to all of a sudden give him $10, $12 million next year, but
right.
it's big for the 2021 team. And I do wonder, that's a guy, I mean, to me, this free agency period is begging for the Titans to sign a receiver, even though they're going to draft one or two. So there's a guy, Juju Smith-Schuster. Can they get him at a good rate, or is he going to be another one of those go back to your team for a year guys?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And now with Jayon Brown back in the fold, like, if you could just figure out cornerback, you've got the makings of a decent defense. Like, obviously we'll still see with Rashaan Evans and what happens on that front, and you've got to have your pass rushers hit. So, I mean, it's great to bring in Bud Dupree and sign him to the big deal. He's got to come in and make an impact for you immediately, and we'll see whether or not he's able to do that. But Jayon Brown back in the fold, I mean, that's a big deal. We talk about, having some speed at linebacker, and, David Long's got a little bit of that, and Rashaan Evans is certainly athletic and gifted, but as you said, Jayon Brown, I think certainly their best cover linebacker, and there were times last year where he made plays in that part of it. I think back to the Pittsburgh game, and Pittsburgh's driving the ball all over the field, and all of a sudden Jayon Brown tips the ball in the air, an interception is made in the end zone, and you've got a chance again, if you're the Titans, to get a playmaker like that back into the fold. I think a big deal. Obviously, I think if you're a Titans fan, the question you have is, can he stay healthy the whole year? Because if he can, that guy's an absolute weapon on the field. And we talked about some draft misses that John Robinson has had. One of the best finds that he's had has been Jayon Brown and what he's brought to the table. That's incredible value from where they selected him in the 5th round.
Yeah, so yesterday, it's a good day. Although, I don't know, I guess it's a surprising day that nothing else happened, that they didn't sign anybody new at this point, kind of waiting things out, but that was definitely a pleasant surprise for this team.
We all expected another move after Janoris Jenkins. They cut Adoree Jackson, they cut Dennis Kelly. Expected another move. Do you think this was it? That they cut Jackson and Kelly to sign Jenkins and Brown?
It's a good question. I mean, I still think you have to sign a receiver somewhere along the line. Like, I know you're going to draft one, but you've got to sign one, right?
Yeah, I think so. At least one. And
probably two.
And I don't even think, when you talk about what was the plan, probably two. Another corner, maybe. I mean, how would you even plan on this happening for you with Jayon Brown, I mean, obviously you're tracking it and talking to his agent and everything, but you had to think, if you were John Robinson, there's a pretty good chance that he was going to be gone, right? You couldn't have counted on this happening. This has got to be like, extra thing of Reese's Cups in your stocking or something,
Well, it is amazing.
Or maybe even better than that.
Well, we spent so much time talking about the big three heading into this offseason of Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Jayon Brown, and I think pretty much everyone thought that Jayon Brown probably the least likely to come back. Here he is, back into the fold. 1 year, $5.25 million.
Well, and I think if you ranked it by who they would like back, I think he's third.
Yeah.
But those guys got paid big, and he
did not.
So it's maybe not great for him. I saw some teammates like tweeting at him like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah, is Jayon like celebrating today?"
Yeah.
That he has to prove himself on another 1 year deal for $5 million when he thought he was going to have a 3-4 year $10 million a year deal.
Right.
Probably not, but could be worse.
Definitely could be worse, and I think a big deal for the Titans to get him back into the fold. And now the question is, what else do you do moving forward here? And like you said, Curtis Samuel, I think a big-time target for the Titans, or at least should have been, off the list now. I don't know what's going to happen with Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, is he a number 2 in this league, do you think?
I think he is.
Okay.
I mean,
he's definitely not number 1 because that's what Pittsburgh wanted him to be when Antonio Brown left. He's not that.
For sure. And he got crowded out of there. They've got a lot of good receivers, but I think he's absolutely a good 2 in this league and could be a good 2 here. Now that Marvin Jones is off the table, Curtis Samuel's off the table, I can't buy Will Fuller. I mean, look, whoever signs Will Fuller, that team is going to benefit when he's on the field. I mean, and the Titans have been talking forever and ever about someone to stretch the field vertically. There's the guy. You got to be real buyer beware with him with the injuries. He's had so many.
Yeah, I mean, he gets hurt all the time. And he's only 26 years old, so it's not like the speed is just evaporating from him. He's still obviously really fast and really good when he's healthy. But the problem is, I mean, dude gets hurt all the time. And then you get the PED stuff last year as well, where you get suspended for it. That does not help either if you're Will Fuller in this conversation. It isn't like he's a guy that's still out there, obviously. I wonder what somebody would be willing to pay Will Fuller at this point, based on, number one, the talent that he's got, but number two, the injury history that he brings to the table with him as well.
Well, and he's out there like everybody who's out there, just in a bad year to be out there as a receiver anyway. So, but he's one of those guys. I mean, who knows what the Texans are doing? I don't know what they're doing anyway. But he may not be one of those guys who gets the 1 year comeback, prove yourself deal from his old team. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And who knows, like, as you said, what the Houston Texans are going to do and how they're going to handle that situation as they move forward. We are streaming live today on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch, so you can follow along via social media with the show today, as well as listening on the Game Nashville app and on the radio station as well, ESPN 102.5 The Game. So we've got a lot of options for you here on Robby and Rexrode, and a lot to get to today here on the show, including some interesting comments made yesterday by Wesley Woodyard, former Tennessee Titans linebacker, on with Darren Daunic and Chase, and had some interesting things to say about the coaching situation as well. We'll discuss that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. How'd you like to watch the Preds game in style? Make sure you're tuning in later in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line at 615-737-1025 for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Homegate. It's your chance to watch a weekend Preds game with a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter, and we'll have that chance coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, and streaming live on Periscope and on YouTube and on Twitch. So you have the opportunity to watch our show now as well via social media. And right now, talking Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. And former Titans linebacker Wesley Woodyard made some interesting comments yesterday on with Darren, Daunic, and Chase, and he got to a lot. Then we're going to spend the rest of this hour talking a lot about some comments made yesterday by Wesley Woodyard. But I think one of the most interesting things that he talked about yesterday was kind of the dynamic between Dean Pease and Mike Vrabel. And you and I have spent a lot of time, Joe, talking about that dynamic. And obviously the Titans missed Dean Pease as their defensive coordinator last year. But just wondering now that Dean Pease is in Atlanta, why did he end up going to Atlanta rather than coming back here to a place in Tennessee where he's very familiar with? He knows the players, obviously knows the coaching staff in Mike Vrabel as well. And Woodyard just had some interesting comments yesterday about that dynamic between Dean Pease and Mike Vrabel on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Here's what Wesley Woodyard had to say.
Wesley, why do you think that Dean Pease unretired and went with Arthur to Atlanta and maybe didn't unretire and come back to the Titans after 1 year? And how surprised were you by that?
I was really surprised. Definitely, I think that again comes along to, that Vrabel wanted to be the guy that was calling the defensive plays, and Coach Pease was very well at proving himself. He's already proved himself. He's already been through this. So when it comes to why should I loosen up my play calling ability just so you can make play calls? Like, I'm going to be a great defensive coordinator no matter what. I don't need you stepping on my toes. And you can kind of see a little bit of those heads bumping during the games last year, and 2 years ago, I should say. And you could kind of see that uncomfortableness, with Coach Pease. And it was a shock to everybody because Coach Pease, he coached Vrabel. So you automatically think that, all right, you brought me out of retirement. I'm going to retire with you on top. We're going to go win some Super Bowls. We're going to be the most dominant defense we can, and I'm going to sell off into the sunset and enjoy my retirement. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
So obviously some strong words there from Wesley Woodyard, talking about some friction between Dean Pease and Mike Vrabel, and used the phrase bumping heads on the sideline a little bit. What do you think that means? What were your takeaways from those comments by Wesley Woodyard? And I guess if you're a Titans fan and you hear something like that from not only a former player but a former captain on the Titans, how does that make you feel about the defensive situation that the Titans are in right now with Vrabel/Shane Bowen running the show?
Well, first of all, let's go to your question at the start on why he wasn't here, and Chase asked that question too. He didn't get offered the D coordinator job here, right? Let's make that clear,
sure.
Right? So, it's kind of framed like, oh, why didn't he take the offer to come back here and be D coordinator? He went to Atlanta. He didn't get the offer here. So that wasn't an option for him. Now, apparently, maybe there was some other role that he could have had, but I think this kind of speaks to, I don't know if I hear Wesley now and say, oh, then so Dean Pease and Mike Vrabel didn't like each other or had friction. I don't know. I think that friction and stuff like that in games happens all the time between coaches.
Agreed.
So you got to keep that in perspective. Wesley Woodyard had a lot to say yesterday here and elsewhere. And it does come off a little bit like Wesley Woodyard just didn't like Mike Vrabel, doesn't like Mike Vrabel, had some kind of issue with him. I will say here's a tweet from him, which actually he has deleted. This is I apologize. This is not a tweet that's been deleted from his timeline. This is a response. This is in mentions, but he said, butt hurt, nah, cut, nope, no one wanted me, not true, sorry, the truth is the truth. and then there's a little poop emoji and says hurts. So I guess the truth or poop hurts.
Yeah.
But so I mean, look, I come away with this saying, wow, did Wesley Woodyard and Mike Vrabel not have a good relationship, or was he angry about being cut? Whatever the case, he just tried to refute that there. But also, I think it's interesting to think about Vrabel and Pease not getting along, Vrabel overstepping. I mean, if Vrabel overstepped on Pease calling plays, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. I mean, Dean Pease has done so much as a D coordinator in this league. And as Wesley said there, you got him out of retirement. Now, he made it sound like he thought Dean Pease would have just stayed here forever and ever and been the DC, and this was Vrabel's fault. I don't know if I buy that either, because I think it was close. He retired once. Then again, he has unretired now. So, I mean, I read Dean Pease as a guy who kind of changes his mind back and forth on that. He has family. He has grandkids playing, all that stuff.
It's like Brett Favre.
Yeah. Well, you get away from the game, and then you're like, crap, I missed the game. He came here last year and, watched the game from the stands. I did not see him throwing spitballs at Vrabel from the sideline. No. I did not see him throwing popcorn at Vrabel's head. I could have missed it, though. I didn't watch every move he made in the game. But it's interesting, no doubt. I had not heard of any sort of, quote-unquote Vrabel-Pease friction. And I don't know if maybe he came a little short of saying that was it, but from his perspective, Vrabel overstepped and maybe made Dean Pease unhappy.
Well, there was another part of the interview that Woodyard went on to talk about with Chase that just didn't make any sense to me. And they were talking about, the identity of the defense and what that looks like. And Woodyard said the last time that they had a defensive identity was January the 11th, 2020. And that was the Ravens game. He said, and I think he went on to say after that, Dean Pease wasn't calling a lot of the defensive plays in the AFC title game against Kansas City, which to me, that just doesn't make any sense to me. You played just about as well as you could possibly play on defense in the game before in Baltimore. Why, if that's true, Mike Vrabel would do that makes no sense to me. And it doesn't make sense if you're Vrabel that Dean Pease has just called this phenomenal game against the Ravens, and you're going into the AFC title game against Patrick Mahomes, and all of a sudden you feel like that's the time that Vrabel needs to step in and start calling plays then. That something there doesn't add up to me.
Thanks, Dean. We were okay last week, but, man, that 2-minute drive late in the first half, sorry, buddy. I'm taking over for Mahomes, okay?
Yeah.
Have a seat. Can you get me a coffee? Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense. If it's true,
that's very concerning.
It's
ridiculous.
If it's true. Yeah, if it's true, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first I've heard anything like that, and of all times that would happen. Of course, that game was followed by Dean Pease retiring, so
it was.
And now he's unretired. So you could add up the events, and match them up with what Woodyard said, and
I mean, if that's true, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. It really is. Like, if that is true, and you go from playing just all out defensively, albeit against a very different offense in the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the team the next week that is borderline unstoppable in Kansas City when everybody's healthy, and all of a sudden he's just not calling plays anymore, and Vrabel is. That's one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard. Makes no sense.
Well, it doesn't. It also doesn't make sense that they didn't offer Pease to come back, if that's true. Like, Dean Pease was a great – he was a really good defensive coordinator for this team. And it does not make sense that they would not have brought him back.
Well, it makes sense in this context.
Well, yes, it does.
If they took away his play calling.
It does. But the whole situation doesn't make sense.
Right.
When you add in the fact that, why wouldn't you bring back Dean Pease? And then, obviously, Dean Pease probably always wanted to remain coaching because at the moment that Arthur Smith gets the job in Atlanta, he's going there.
Well, I mean, maybe. It could just be he retired and then a global pandemic happened and he said, you know what, I'm really bored. I'd like to get back in football. Like,
He also came out with his comments in the Tennessean right around the time that there was a lot of turmoil with that defense. And it felt almost strategic on his point.
Strategic to let Arthur Smith know he wanted to come back? So when Arthur Smith got a head coach job, he'd go with Arthur Smith?
To let everybody know that he's thinking about coming back, that he has the itch or whatever it was that he was directly quoted, when there's all of this turmoil over who's the DC for this team. They had just lost to Cincinnati, and it's like, what is going on with the defense? And then here's Pease throwing out this veiled shot of, I'm thinking about coming back. And then he attends the game. Like, it was just all very weird.
I have to remember, though, didn't he also, though, kind of say, like, I'm not trying to come back this year or something like that? Like, didn't he qualify it to a certain extent?
Sure.
Like, I don't remember him saying, I'm here, let's go. I'm your DC right now. But I think you're right. It was strategic because he was like, I want to come back. But I mean,
that would add up with what y'all are talking about with what happened possibly in the playoffs.
Yeah, I look forward to the next time Mike Vrabel's available so we can ask him if he took the play calling away from Dean Pease in the AFC Championship game. I'm sure he'll give a thorough, detailed answer, the blow-by-blow of every play call that game. It's hard for me to buy it. I'm trying to think, too, like, from a player perspective. You know, obviously the players don't have the headsets on.
Right.
You know, so.
I mean, did Woodyard have the green dot?
That's a good question.
May have. Because Jayon Brown wasn't available, right?
Yeah.
So he was hurt.
So he'd be.
Could have had the green dot.
Maybe
it was David Long. I don't know.
Or Evans.
Or Evans.
Yeah, it probably was a Woodyard. So although how much? He had to play a lot in that game. Yeah. So I guess maybe he'd know.
He might be.
I mean, because I want clarification on that. Okay, every play call, or is it Vrabel just butt in more? I mean, the head coach butts in all the time.
Yes.
Head coach on the headset overrules calls all the time. They all do. Okay. So if it's like he did it, more often in that game, okay, that's not the same thing. If it was Dean, get cozy.
I'm calling the plays.
Chart some routes up there.
Right.
And I'm calling the plays, then what?
That's a lot different.
That's ridiculous.
Or did he start butting in the second half when things started to unravel a little bit?
Yeah, and even if that's the case, I don't have a problem with that. Because, it was unraveling, And really the answer is, hey, I'll call a play. You call a play. Let's have a fan call a play. Doesn't matter. We're playing Pat Mahomes.
It's Patrick, not
Let's
Pat.
put it on Twitter. Who wants to call this next play?
We'll continue this discussion on the other side of the break when we come back and continue to visit some more comments made yesterday by Wesley Woodyard. How concerned are we about Mike Vrabel based on some of these comments made by the former Titans linebacker? We'll discuss it next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. David Beauclair from SI.com dropping by to begin the 7 o'clock hour. We'll continue to discuss the Tennessee Titans with him. Right now, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, discussing some of the comments made yesterday on Darren Donica-Chase by former Titans linebacker Wesley Woodyard and how it relates to the coaching staff here with the Titans. Plain Joe on the text line says, maybe because of friendships and relationships with Vrabel and Arthur Smith, Dean Pease just wanted to help them get started in head coaching. So obviously Vrabel reached out to Dean Pease. He helped Vrabel get his start in head coaching when he was here with the Titans. And now Arthur Smith doing the same thing in Atlanta. Plain Joe saying maybe Dean Pease just likes helping his friends start in their coaching careers.
Sure. That's not,
I think it's part of
that's
it.
not what we're talking about, but yeah.
Well, I think he means like instead of it just having to be this big blow-up between Vrabel and Dean Pease, maybe it's as simple as I helped Vrabel out when he started. Now I want to help Arthur Smith out when he starts in Atlanta.
I think that's true. I mean, but is Wesley Woodyard making everything up out of thin air?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know why he would do that.
I don't either.
I mean, Wesley Woodyard doesn't have anything to lose, so why would he start making stuff up?
Well, yeah. Now the quick response, and clearly he's gotten some of this on the Twitter app, is, oh, so you're bitter, you got an axe to grind, you hate Vrabel, et cetera, et cetera.
Look, I think it's pretty clear he's not the biggest fan of Mike Vrabel based on the comments that he's made.
Yes, that is clear. I guess it's, but to your point, on nothing to lose. Like, what's the gain here? You know, what's the gain here? I mean, I guess to him, as he responds to people, I'm just telling what happened. If you don't like the truth as he lays it out, then that's your problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's absolutely true that Dean Pease came back. Vrabel, one of his favorite players, came back, loved the idea of ground floor, helping him get going, and it's the same thing with Arthur Smith. The question is, what all happened in between there?
Yeah, and that's a question that, to your point, the next time Vrabel talks, I'm going to be interested to see how he handles all this. I would assume he gets asked about it at some point because this got a lot of traction yesterday on Titans Twitter, talking about the comments made by Wesley Woodyard, and he had some more comments talking about Mike Vrabel as a head coach and what his style is like and kind of the balance you've got to take of being a player's coach and knowing when to kind of insert yourself in there and also knowing when to back away on a certain side of the ball as well. Here's what Wesley Woodyard had to say yesterday on Darren Donica-Chase.
As a guy that was in that locker room, I definitely think so. I think sometimes you can strangle your team, you can strangle your defensive guys, and it definitely shows. So I definitely think Mike is the man for the job, for sure. Never saying that he's not the man for the job. But, at some point there has to be some maturity in that defense. And the only way you let your defense mature is if you step back and you let them make that move towards greatness. Like, it goes back to, like, when you have a kid. Like, I can't want it as much for my child as my child has to want it. So you have to let them grow up and be mature and understand, like, hey, it's going to take one of us inside this group to take us to the next level. And unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see that at all last year because nobody knew who to look for. Nobody knew who to look to talk to get those answers. Everybody had to go back to Vrabel. Who's the defensive coordinator? Who's doing this? Is it Shane? Is it Coach Vrabel? Is it who? So there's no identity going to be formed when there's that lack of accountability going throughout the building.
So that was Wesley Woodyard talking about the defensive problems that he saw from the Titans last year and talking about the approach as a coach, how sometimes you got to back off a little bit and let the players take the ball and run with it. What did you think of those comments there from Wesley Woodyard when it comes to the approach Vrabel has on the defensive side of the ball?
So it sounds like, I guess, basically saying he micromanages too much. I mean, like when I hear those comments and I think of last year, it's like, I mean, I guess you could just step away and say, "Fly away, little bird, into greatness. You will be the 85 Bears." I think I'd probably micromanage last year's group a little bit
Probably so.
as a coach too. So this,
Jonathan Joseph, you just take the ball and run with it, my friend.
Vic Beasley, I'm not even going to say anything to you. You will get 8 sacks this week. Yeah, I mean it's. If you're bad, you're bad, and that's the thing too. So much of this stuff is so tied to, like, people talk about like team chemistry, and culture, right? And to me, it's very chicken and egg. Like when you're winning, it's like that toughness and that accountability, and then when you're losing, all of a sudden that voice gets it starts want like the Peanuts adults, And it doesn't take long. I mean, Peter Laviolette here. I think that we've talked about him and maybe the shelf life, but it also, like, if things were going well for the Preds, would his voice have been getting old in the room? Probably not as much,
Probably
right?
not.
They'd love that wolf mask and whatever the heck else he's doing. So
Cobra Kai.
So this brought up. I thought of this and the timing of this. Okay, because right after that win over the Ravens, I wrote a huge piece last year on Vrabel. Talked to a bunch of guys. So here's Kenny Vaccaro. Here's a quote from Kenny Vaccaro on Vrabel. Quote, "His relationship with his players is what separates him. This is nothing against Sean Payton, but I talked to Vrabel more in a week here than I did with him in 5 years." That's not a knock on Payton. I'm just saying this is a relationship. Now let's go to Wesley Woodyard. Because, of course, I went to Wesley Woodyard because he was a guy who you could count on to be a straight shooter and give you good stuff. So this is what Wesley Woodyard said after the Ravens game, before, apparently, the coup that Mike Vrabel staged on DPs. This is a quote from Woodyard. Quote, "I can definitely say he's been the same guy since day one." He's talking about Vrabel. Quote, "And as a player, that's what you look for. That's what you need. And he understands that in order for us to improve as a team, he has to hold everyone accountable the same way. If your young players or guys who aren't starting see him coach me up, coach a Jarrell Casey up, coach a Kevin Byard up, those guys will be like, okay, they're still being coached. Maybe I don't know everything. That's where great coaching and great leadership go hand in hand." End quote. So he seemed okay with him then.
Maybe that next week was just a breaking point.
Apparently that, now to be, to match everything up here, he is saying this in the wake of what he has said on the show, the last great day of the defense or whatever?
Yeah.
So apparently Patty Mahomes can rip up a team.
Apparently so.
On the field and off the field. So, but, again, and this was a very long story, like so many of my stories, thousands of words, but there's a lot of that in there about his approach. I mean, at that point, here's another Woodyard quote. Let me just give you another Woodyard quote. Quote, "He's apologized a few times this season, or not necessarily apologized, but, hey, guys, that's my fault, that's my bad when things haven't gone well. And as a player, it's, hey, our coach is owning up. It's not just us messing up. I'd like to think that's common, but in a lot of cases it's not. Some coaches want to hide their hand and be like, hey, I did everything I was supposed to do. My players didn't get it done. But here it's all about everyone in it together. No splintering. You mess up, I mess up. The point is, let's get it fixed and get it right," end quote. Wesley Woodyard was like Mike Vrabel's agent as of the end of the Ravens game last year, and now he's not.
Well, and that's interesting because part of the conversation now about Mike Vrabel is the guy can't admit when he's wrong, and he's doubling down on Shane Bowen coming in here. So obviously he doesn't think the coaching was a problem at all last year, all this other stuff. And then you hear those comments from Woodyard like, yeah, when he messes up, he owns up to it, and that's not very common around the league. So there's mixed signals coming out here.
And this is Wesley Woodyard before getting cut. Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't believe that Wesley Woodyard got cut, decided he hates Vrabel, and said, I'm going to make up some fantasy scenario. I don't buy that. Wesley Woodyard's a good guy. He's an honest guy. I think there's truth in what he's saying. I still would like some –
It does kind of seem like a player with an axe to grind, though.
Yes. I think there's some of that, and I'd like some clarification on what exactly happened with the play calling. I just can't buy that he just took it from D&Ps.
We'll continue this discussion when we come back, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Right now I'm talking about some comments made by Wesley Woodyard, former Tennessee Titans linebacker, on head coach Mike Vrabel. David on our text line says, "There is zero doubt that Woodyard was still speaking regularly to guys that were on the 2020 defense. I bet he's got some intimate details from Byard or players like that." So what do you think of that from David, that obviously Wesley Woodyard very close to some of these players that have been around at defense for a while, probably still speaking to them and maybe getting some intimate details on the way the defense was run last year?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, this really is one of my overarching themes of sports that I'm pretty passionate about, because, and I mentioned it earlier, but this whole chemistry culture thing, it can be really good, and then all of a sudden Jonathan Joseph's giving up bombs and your pass rushers aren't getting home and you suck. And all of a sudden, gosh, the chemistry is worse.
Yeah.
How is that? You know why? Because people are mad. Because people get mad when you lose or play poorly. And so, again, it's chicken and egg on, obviously you want guys who love ball. You want, good guys. You want people to get along, work hard, do the process, all the things to get to winning. But if it doesn't go well, if your opponent kicks your butt, that is a real test of team chemistry. And if it happens enough, now, of course, we're talking about 11-5 team last year. That's the amazing thing about all this. A lot of the discussion about the 2020 Titans, if you just parachuted in and didn't follow the NFL season, you'd think we were talking about a 5-11 team.
Yeah.
Or not. But defensively, they were so bad that it gets to this. And on that side of the ball, all they did last year was give up third downs, lean on their offense to win for them, and then answer questions after games, especially when they didn't win, about why they were so bad.
Right.
That hurts team chemistry. So, that's just most people, I think, still look at it like this leads to this, A plus B equals C. I mean, again, it goes the other way, too. It goes the other way, and if you just have somebody who isn't good on your team, there's a cliche in sports, you're only as good as your weakest link. But, if it starts going the other way off the field or on the field, on the court, well, then we really see if you have good team chemistry.
So bottom line, as you factor in everything we've talked about with Mike Vrabel and his commitment to Shane Bowen and now the comments made by Wesley Woodyard as well, if you're a Titans fan, how concerned are you about Mike Vrabel, the direction of this team, and I guess, for lack of a better term, maybe his stubbornness on that side of the ball, not to be able to either delegate or step back or admit when mistakes are made? How concerning would that be to you if you're a Titans fan?
I mean, Woodyard says he's incredible at owning his mistakes.
I know.
Look, I think this is interesting, and it's certainly worth thinking about. I think this year is huge for that. If they come out and they're bad on defense after the whole thing with Shane Bowen, there's a lot of pressure on Shane Bowen. And there's a lot of pressure on Mike Vrabel for Shane Bowen to perform well. If it goes poorly, what else? How else could you assess the whole situation other than Vrabel was stubborn and screwed it up? I mean, that's totally that's totally fair.
That's it.
It's the only place you can go with it.
Well, and to your point, Porth, from yesterday, talking about, obviously there's pressure on Todd Downing and pressure on Shane Bowen. But at the end of the day, those decisions come back to one guy, and that's Mike Vrabel. And, yeah, I mean, if Shane Bowen and that defense, if they are not good and they get lit up again, a lot of people are going to be screaming to fire Shane Bowen. But that decision comes back on Mike Vrabel. I think this is a huge year for him. I mean, I'm not saying if they miss the playoffs this year that they're just going to fire Mike Vrabel. But in terms of public opinion, which I think is already starting to teeter a little bit on Mike Vrabel, who could do no wrong after they got put out in the AFC title game against Kansas City, that's already starting to shift slightly with Titans fans. If it goes poorly this year with those two at the coordinator spots, there's going to be a lot of people angry at Mike Vrabel.
It just comes across not only with those coordinator moves, but every time he speaks to the media that he's right, you're wrong, It's my way or the highway. And if anybody has a question about what I'm doing, then screw you.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it comes across as with almost everything that he does.
Well, that's the thing. Again, it's an 11-5 team. Yet it's impossible to not notice in any way that you interact with fans a big change in how fans viewed Vrabel after last year because of the defense, but also because of what you just said, because of how he talked about it. And then after all that, Bowen's elevated. Okay. Hey.
Didn't think that title was a big deal.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Oh, well, apparently this is the biggest deal in the world. Well, okay, then why do we ever give anyone a title?
Right.
I was hoping this year I'd look at the Titans website and I'd see just like
coaches.
Yeah.
No coordinators.
Right. Just assistant coach all across the board. Who cares? Who cares about titles? Yeah, it's just stuff like that. I agree. I mean, and again, this is talking to media, and I understand why coaches and players get mad at us. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Why are you questioning me? But you're talking to fans. You're not just talking to media. We aren't in a
vacuum
bubble. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. A vacuum. Talking to fans, and fans didn't like it, and I don't blame them, especially when it's going so poorly for an 11-5 team. But still.
Also, we talk about how they were an 11-5 division winner. All of that is obviously true, and it's easy to say this about almost any team in their schedule, but they got pretty lucky to be 5-0 early in the season, and after that, they were essentially a 500 team. Up and down. You didn't know what to expect week to week. I think we all knew that 5-0 record at the start. There were they were doing that with some smoke and mirrors.
Well, they were, and then you lose Lawan too, and that adds on it.
Yeah. Now I'll push back on you a little bit here because smoke and mirrors is part of this league. Like,
that's true.
I mean, you can go through any team schedule other than your Bears of 85 or whatever. And a lot of teams that are 12-4, man, they easily could have been 8-8. And the Titans lost some close games too among the 5, right?
And that's why you can do that with almost any schedule in the NFL. But I also think there's some truth to it.
Yeah, you win. Although this team definitely proved that. You can win the division for the first time in 12 years. You can have your most wins in 12 years. You can have an incredible offense that's one of the most entertaining teams to watch. But if you're that bad on one side of the ball, it's still going to be a lot of complaining.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JD texts in and says, the problems in Titanland aren't that bad yet. But as I said earlier, we are beginning to see that Vrabel is a good coach, but not a great coach. And it seems like he wants to act like he's Belichick, but doesn't have the skins on the wall to back up that arrogance. Even as bad as Belichick is with the media, there's a certain comedic sideshow to it now. He's trying to establish the next man up mentality when the next man doesn't want to step up for him. The next man wanted to step up for Dean Pease. I think this is why we have seen regression in players such as Byard and Rashaan Evans. Pease was able to coach Evans up at the end of 2019, and we saw his effort and quality of play increase. If J-Rob doesn't knock Vrabel down a peg, I think this is only going to get worse.
Okay. Look, I think all those thoughts are fair to a point. They're possible. It's possible that that's what's going on here. The problem is we don't know the exact dynamics like with Robinson and Vrabel, and I don't know. My perception from being in the building, and being around the team as much as you could be as a media member, was that there was a ton of respect mutually between Vrabel and Pease. So did something go wrong there at the end? That's kind of the picture that Woodyard has painted here. I don't know that necessarily speaks to like what Vrabel is as a coach. And we're going to find out a lot more this year. But I understand that line of thinking. And you just look at the roster too. It's right now they're a worse team than they were a year ago. So concerns are totally understandable right now.
Coming up next, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans, look at free agency, and maybe some moves the Titans still have left to make. David Beauclair from SI.com will drop by and join us. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Also streaming live on Periscope and on YouTube and on Twitch as well. So check us out on those platforms if you haven't already. You can see Joe Rexrode's beautiful face every single morning here on Periscope, Twitch, and on YouTube as well. Talking Titans, and to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and bring in the legendary David Beauclair from SI.com. Dave, what's going on, man? How we doing?
I'm good, gentlemen. How are you today?
We are wonderful. It is great to hear your voice. Great to have you on with us. And, David, I just want to start with the Titans and the moves that they've made, the moves they've not made yet in the offseason. Based on your expectations heading into the free agency period, where are you with this team? How surprised are you with some of the moves that they've made and also some of the cuts that they've made?
Yeah, I was going to say, starting with the bloodletting, if you will, it was a little more severe than I think most of us expected. Without a doubt, they were going to have to do some things. I think Kenny Vaccaro was a no-brainer. Anyone who has watched Amani Hooker play the last couple of years, particularly last fall, knows he's ready, and that's a simple case of you've got a guy on a rookie contract ready to be a starter in this league. You've got to make him a starter. That was just bad luck for Kenny Vaccaro that way. But to gas both of your starting cornerbacks and the right tackle when you seemingly had no other option because your first round draft pick last year, who was supposed to be the right tackle like that. I long held the belief from the moment they drafted Isaiah Wilson last year. I thought, okay, Dennis Kelly's 3-year contract is actually a 1-year deal. He's getting cut, in 2021, and then they plug Wilson in and go from there. I thought the way the whole Isaiah Wilson situation played out meant that they were going to have to go with Dennis Kelly another year and then figure out what to do from there. But they're going to have to figure out what to do now, I guess, with that position, with having taken away one guy who was reliable and somewhat durable last year on that offensive line. So that was a little more extreme. I think the Bud Dupree signing is one that people are going to be really excited about and kind of take some of the sting out of some of the moves you had to make. The Janoris Jenkins one is the question mark to me. As a GM, I'd be terrified of old cornerbacks at all times, particularly after last season when I signed an old cornerback in Jonathan Joseph and it didn't work out so well. So, it's certainly been a busy week and a half for John Robinson and his staff, and now I'm sure things will settle down and they kind of wait for the market to drop and see what kind of guys you can plug in there on some less expensive deals now.
Yeah, I hear you on Jenkins, David, for sure. And like you said, there are more guys to sign. We know that there's a draft to come. When I would assume that receiver and corner are among the positions addressed. But back to right tackle, the hard part for me here is understanding why you're signing up for Kendall Lamb to be your starter, apparently, and without seeing the structure of the deal, not much of a savings compared with Kelly. That's the one that I can't figure out. Is there something I'm missing here?
Joe, I think maybe it's the fact that, Dennis Kelly, remember, didn't practice hardly at all for the last 8, 9, 10 weeks of last season, whatever it was. I mean, he was gutting it out on, through some knee injuries, I believe it was, and maybe they just feel like, he's not going to be able to hold up for another 16-game season, and let's get somebody who's a little younger and maybe a little sturdier and go from there. And or maybe it's David Quesenberry. Maybe they're looking at him and saying, he did a decent job in there as our third different starting left tackle last year. Maybe he's better suited to play the right side, and they think he can be that guy. Those are the only two options that I see right now. Aaron Brewer was a guy they really liked as an undrafted rookie, but he's an inside guy. I know he played tackle at Texas State, but I think there's a big difference between that and playing tackle in the NFL. So, I assume they feel like they have options, but those options to like you and me, I don't think are 100% clear right now.
David Beauclair from SI.com, also at Beauclair Sports on Twitter, joining us here on Robby and Rexrode. And David, obviously yesterday, Jayon Brown back into the fold, a 1-year, $5.25 million deal. And Joe and I have been talking about, the big three in free agency for the last couple of months with Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith and Jayon Brown. And I guess we always felt like Jayon Brown probably the least likely of those three to come back. And the fact that he's back on a $5.25 million contract, I was just blown away that the number was that low. How important is this for the Titans to get him back in the fold at least for another year?
Yeah, I think it's a really big win for the Titans. I think you look at the way the guy has grown throughout his career. It's a big risk from Jayon Brown's perspective. This is a guy who's had injuries late each of the last 2 years, and he's sort of gambling that the market will be better next year one way or another, but he's got to get through a season healthy. I mean, the good news is he's grown into the player that is an every down linebacker over the last 2 years, but the bad news is over those 2 years he hasn't held up. He had the shoulder injury that caused him to miss a game late in 2019, and then 2 of the 3 playoff games he wasn't able to go, and then of course the elbow injury last year. So he's got to become a little more durable, but in terms of how he works with Rashaan Evans, the speed that he gives to that linebacker group, combined with the speed that Bud Dupree, for example, is adding to that group, I think I think without question this is going to be the fastest starting set of linebackers we have seen from this team in a long time now, and I think that's probably a critical element in the minds of Mike Vrabel and Shane Bowen.
So this receiver room right now, David, is A.J. Brown and Cam Batson. Again, there's great receivers in the draft. I mean, I think we all expect, that to be taken advantage of by the Titans. But what are you seeing out there now? Obviously, it's a soft market for the receivers. I mean, Kenny Golladay, I think, thought he was going to have a much bigger deal signed by now, and he's still out there. What of the remaining options? I liked Curtis Samuel a lot, and he signs with Washington football team yesterday. But of the remaining options, who do you like, and what do you think they should do?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe. I have to admit I haven't looked at the list lately to see exactly who's still out there. But Marvin Jones is a name that's been bandied about. Is he still available?
Yeah, so he went to Jacksonville to go with Urban Meyer's wonderful strength program.
Yes.
Let me ask you specifically. What do you think of Juju?
Golden Tate's a guy who's kicking around, right? That'd be fun for the local folks here. I think Chris Conley, a guy with the Jaguars, is a guy who is has done some things. He's done some things against the Titans. I would think the Titans have a better impression of him maybe than some other teams do, just because he's beat them up a little bit. It seems like, there's going to be somebody in this group here that they get on the cheap and are going to try and expect something from. But they've got this is 2 years in a row that there's loads of wide receivers in the draft. The Titans chose not to pick one last year. They're going to have to pick one this year. It might not be until the third round maybe, but they absolutely have to get one of those guys this year.
What do you think of Juju Smith-Schuster? Do you think he's a good 2 in this league? Someone that would fit here?
He's a good 2, but the one thing, and this sounds absurd to say, but it came up so much over the last couple of years that I think you have to think about it. Is Juju Smith-Schuster going to be anywhere near the type of blocker that Corey Davis has been in the run game? Smith-Schuster is an interesting guy in terms of running those shallow crosses and can turn some short throws into long gains, and there's value in that. But he doesn't strike. Now I have to say I haven't watched him a ton, but he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to get physical against a linebacker or a safety in there. When Derrick Henry's running the ball 25 times a game, and I think that actually has to be part of the consideration for the Titans in what they're doing in that position too, because you heard it over and over and over again from coaches and players on this team how valuable that Corey Davis was in that role for this team.
David, last thing for you here. We talked a lot so far on the show today about some comments made yesterday by Wesley Woodyard regarding Mike Vrabel and maybe some friction with Dean Pease at the end of his tenure here in Nashville, and Vrabel needing to back off a little bit from the defensive point of view. As you look at Mike Vrabel, if you're a Titans fan, how concerned should you be about maybe some stubbornness involved there? I know a lot of Titans fans upset with going in-house with Shane Bowen after the way the defense was last year. How concerned should you be about Vrabel's, I guess, stubbornness or demeanor if you're a Titans fan at this point?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Wesley Woodyard's comments certainly explained the whole Dean Pease situation where, Dean retires and then halfway through last season says, maybe I want to coach again, which, clearly he was just letting the world know, hey, I'm ready. I think it was just a situation where, it sounds like he told Mike Vrabel, look, if you and I are going to be friends, we can't work together anymore. Mike Vrabel is, we've all seen that from him, and we've all experienced it from him. He wants to run things the way he wants to run them, and I think he kind of overstepped his bounds a little bit when he first arrived on the scene, and had to sort of retreat a little bit. But now that he's got some pelts on the wall, has been to the playoffs 2 years, has won a division title, has gotten as far as the AFC Championship game, I think he feels like he's got a little more power and a little more ability to sort of dictate to everybody in this organization, and that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. It depends on how he does it. Certainly some of the best coaches in the world are not guys that most people want to hang out and have beers with. They're not wired that way. So this is going to be a critical season for him in terms of his overall tenure here, because yes, the Titans got better. They won 11 games. They won the division last year, but in a couple of ways they took steps back too. So there's sort of this tug of war within this organization now. Is it moving forward? Is it going backward? And I think this year is going to be pretty telling in that regard.
David Beauclair from SI.com, also at Beauclair Sports on Twitter, has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. David, great to have you on the show, man. Thanks for taking time to join us this morning.
Thanks for having me, boys. We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. One of the best in the business. David Beauclair has covered the Titans since day one when they've been around here. We'll react to a little bit of what David had to say there and get a little bit deeper into the right tackle position as well coming up. Now that we're 1 day removed, what do we make of this Dennis Kelly decision? Did the Titans make the wrong choice letting him get away from this team? We'll discuss that next. This is 102.5 The Game is kicking off every weekend with free beer.
Free beer.
That was not as passionate.
Free beer.
There we go. And who doesn't love free beer? Make sure you're tuning in all day on Friday for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Bavarian Beer House located at Opry Mills Mall. We'll have a trivia question for you tomorrow at 9:45 that Ryan Porth has already prepared. So preparation is key. Ryan Porth's like the Peyton Manning of this show, just always prepared, always ready to go.
I've got the trivia question ready. I've got my weekend winners ready. Called shots.
Yeah.
Really? You got all that ready?
Oh, yeah.
Dang.
Wow.
Impressive.
I've
got nothing.
My called shots usually happen at 7:42, 7:45 segment. But hey, doing okay on those lately.
Well, if Porth is running away with stuff, then maybe that's a sign that we need to be better prepared. Right now he's not, but
Well, I mean, he's
I'm
also
just saying if he does.
Yeah, like I'm just on the called shot part of things. When you got 35 of them,
That's true. You need to-
generally hit on a few.
You also need to prepare,
You need to prepare for
a little
that.
bit more ahead of time than just 7:42 if you're going to come up with 35 called shots.
I don't know. I could come up with a lot right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But we couldn't all
You're a
do
quicker
that.
thinker than I am.
I don't know about that.
But we couldn't all do that, or we wouldn't get through this segment if we had as many shots as you
That's
have.
true. We'd need about 2 segments. It's okay.
It's true.
We'll let you be the shot glutton.
The shot glutton. Very nicely done.
Hey, I'm going back to my college days again.
This has been a good week for that for you on the program.
Shot glutton and Joe's Bud.
Joe's Bud. That's absolutely right. Hopefully we'll hear from Heidi a little bit later in the show. We're talking Titans here on the program, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We talked to David Beauclair in the last segment and brought up an interesting point about right tackle. And look, now that he says that, I mean, it makes sense. You draft Isaiah Wilson, you've signed Dennis Kelly to an extension, but especially based on the way like this offseason was going to be and how much restructuring and cuts you were going to have to make, if Isaiah Wilson was still here and he worked out the way the Titans wanted him to, I don't think there's any way Dennis Kelly would be here this year. I did not expect, now that Isaiah Wilson is gone, for Dennis Kelly to be cut. What do you think of what Beauclair threw out there that, he was injured all the last year, not finding a way to practice. He found a way to play and get on the field, but maybe the Titans are hoping for somebody at right tackle to be a little younger, perhaps a little bit more sturdy there to get through a 16-game schedule. And also threw out the idea of maybe Quesenberry moving over from left tackle to right tackle, and maybe that being a guy that the Titans take a look at as a potential starter. What do you think of those two theories thrown out there by David Beauclair?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a good thought on Quesenberry. He, again, pretty amazing to me that you could go to your 3 and after Tyson Brilo went down and get what the Titans got out of him. And obviously he's an interesting case because he had cancer early in his career, so that knocked out really a couple years. So in terms of, I mean, he's 30, but in terms of wear and tear, he's not 30. I mean, he hasn't had that kind of wear and tear. And I think Beauclair was right also on the concerns about Kelly's health, and he's right. He barely practiced last year. Now, he wasn't the only one. There are a lot of guys there. I mean, Saffold was missing practice and playing in games. Simmons was missing a lot of practice. A lot of guys, as you get late in the year, that happens. But Kelly was a lot of the year, and knee stuff is not comforting when you have a player that age. So I understand all that. I just, it's just the signing of Lamb. It just, to me, it's like you're swapping in a starter who, as far as we know, isn't as good and is barely cheaper, So that's, to me, it's like roll one more year with Kelly, and that offensive line functions well together, even if he may not be, a Pro Bowler over there. But they made the move. So I think that's a good thought on Quesenberry. He, who is under contract, by the way, next year. He'll be a free agent in 2022. I am trying to figure out now. I believe Sombrilo was a 1-year deal. So,
yeah.
But I mean, to me,
you probably get him back.
You could probably get him back cheap. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. I mean, have as much depth as at any spots as you can. You have zero depth at receiver. You do have depth all of a sudden at inside linebacker that we didn't expect him to have, and you don't even have a starting group at corner. So you got a lot of work to do. But that would be another move that I think would make sense. Yesterday, Ferkser and Swaim talked to media, and of course those guys are in the fold now. Pruitt is out there, so maybe it's Ferkser, Swaim, and TBD at that position. Maybe they'll still sign Pruitt, and even if they do, I mean, to me, they still need to find that quote-unquote number one tight end.
Well, we talked a lot about Wesley Woodyard here on the show, and he had some comments about Dennis Kelly yesterday in his interview with Darren Daunic and Chase, and what a loss this is for the Titans. Here's what Wesley Woodyard had to say on Dennis Kelly.
You look on the offensive side with Dennis Kelly, to me, who has been that cornerstone of the offensive line side, not Taylor Lewan. It's been Dennis Kelly as far as his consistency, being able to play, being able to plug in and play left tackle, right tackle at a high level. So, I think it's a lot of moves that are unsure that guys, like, nobody really knows what's going on.
So that was Wesley Woodyard yesterday on with Darren Daunic and Chase. Now, I don't know if I buy that Dennis Kelly has been the cornerstone of the offensive line and not Taylor Lewan. I understand what Woodyard's talking about there. Lewan was hurt last year. But certainly a big loss with Dennis Kelly. Now, maybe Kendall Lamb comes in and the Titans' offensive line doesn't miss a beat. Maybe you do go with Quessenberry and you still feel pretty good about the offensive line. But all the moves that have been made, and our poll question yesterday kind of reflected this from Titans fans as well, this is the one to me that by far makes the least amount of sense.
And this is the one that we probably won't really get the full understanding of until the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to use – it's a very good tackle draft, very good receiver draft. Are they going to there's no choice in receiver. The only choice is like how many on receiver. But are they going to use a prominent pick on a tackle again? I mean, maybe they need to. But
I don't know, man.
I don't know, but I mean, at this point, Kendall Lamb he's a career back. I mean,
yeah.
he looked good catching that touchdown pass against the Titans last year. But I mean, again, much more known commodity, even banged up and all that, in Dennis Kelly compared to Kendall Lamb. And yeah, I think the Quessenberry thing is a good thing to bring up. I mean, that may be part of the thinking here, but they may still be looking at this like, you know what, got to get the guy for the future, and here's a draft loaded with him. And, yeah, we have other needs, but got to do it. Now, we know I thought maybe they'd be drafting an inside linebacker too because they have no depth there, but that's been taken care of at least. So yesterday knocked one of those out.
At Monsoon Monaghan on Periscope says Dennis Kelly was a solid number 2, and you didn't have to worry. He will be missed. I would agree with that, and as I said, you can watch us now on Periscope and on YouTube and on Twitch. So
and you can comment.
Oh, yeah, you can comment on there as well.
How many places are you getting comments from now?
Got a lot of comments you got to keep up with. That's part of being multifaceted here on the program. That's what we do here.
I'm glad that you are competent enough to handle all that stuff. Here's a comment, by the way. I'll give you one from Twitter from Seth Lake on the Vrabel stuff. Quote, as a head coach or a leader in any business, you can't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and empower them to do their job. It allows you to focus on the whole picture and gives the team the greatest chance of succeeding. I guess the implication being that's not what Vrabel does.
Yeah.
Is it that Vrabel – I don't buy that Vrabel's like, I'm the smart guy and I make call the shots. I don't buy that. But did he overstep? Did he do something that ticked off Dean Pease? Maybe he did.
When we come back, we will switch gears and get into the Nashville Predators. A big win the other day against the Tampa Bay Lightning, taking on the Florida Panthers tonight. Todd Richards, Predators assistant coach, will join us, and we'll talk about that with him coming up next. But right now, I got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and there's always that one team that ruins your bracket this time of year, and that's why this year I'm betting the tournament on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, because on FanDuel, your first bet is risk-free, and it doesn't matter if you're betting on maybe Tennessee or Oregon State. New users get up to $1,000 in site credit back if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel's got odds on all the action with games day and night. It's an easy-to-use app, multiple deposits and fast withdrawals, always on promotions, and your next chance to win with FanDuel is only minutes away. So if that's not enough, FanDuel wants to make you a millionaire. Yes, they're giving away $1 million to one lucky bettor. New and existing users get an additional shot at the payout every day you bet on the tourney. So if you want a shot at becoming a millionaire or even a thousandaire, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Just use promo code ROB so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. No purchase necessary. Restrictions apply for $1 million drawing. Risk-free offer for first online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires 14 days after receipt. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. And for problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The Nashville Predators taking on the Florida Panthers tonight at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Predators assistant coach Todd Richards. Todd, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Good morning, guys. It's a beautiful sunny day down here right now.
I bet it is, Todd. I mean, this is a pretty long road trip you guys have been on at this point, and you know it's long for a normal season, but when you have the protocols and everything else in place this year as well, I would imagine this has been a really long road trip for you guys. What's it been like for the team and for the staff so far on the road with this long of a trip?
Yeah, it does get long at times. The good thing is that there's some bad things about it that you can't necessarily get outside, go to restaurants. You're kind of confined to the hotel. But the good thing about it is you're constantly around each other. As far as young guys and veteran guys getting together and kind of growing as a team, getting those bonds that you need as a group. And it's no different with the coaches or the staff. The one thing it's nice when you do, that makes it a little bit easier compared to how we traveled in the past. Was you literally can get to a city now and you can unpack your bag because you're going to be here for a few days.
Yeah.
Where in the past there were times where you might have got in the night before and played a game and you're gone right after the game. You aren't even there 24 hours. So there's some things that are disadvantaged, but there are some things that help us too.
So, Todd, there's been talk from some around the league to that point of, hopefully when things get back to normal and we're trending in that direction and the schedule's back to being 82 games, that maybe you do things like this a little bit more often when you're on the road and play some double headers or play, twice in 4 nights in a city instead of, going out west once and then going around and coming back home and coming out west again. What do you think of that idea? I know there's some, scheduling challenges that come with that from the league's perspective, but do you like kind of the double dip set that you guys have been in all year this season on the road?
Well, it does make it easier, and I'll tell you what, from a coaching standpoint, it makes it a little bit easier too when you're playing somebody, twice in a row. I've talked to people in the past about playoff hockey, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you got time to golf in the playoffs?" I'm like, "Time to golf in the playoffs? That's the best time to golf because as a coach, you're preparing for one team during the regular season. You play, like you said, use the trip out west, for example. You play in Anaheim, one night, and the next night you're playing the LA Kings, and 2 nights later you're playing the San Jose Sharks. And, you're preparing for each one of those teams. When you're playing a team back-to-back, you prepare. It's not that you don't do anything for the second game, but it makes it easier. Your meetings aren't readjusting to a whole new team and kind of re-educating the players about this is what they do compared to maybe what the LA Kings did. So from that standpoint, it makes it easier. Obviously, probably the grind on the body, and you would be eliminating some trips. But again, I grew up playing the 82-game season where you just were there for one night, and I coached it for a long time. So I see the advantages of kind of doing this back-to-back. But I am still a little bit old school as well.
Predators assistant coach Todd Richards on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Todd, a really impressive performance from your group the other day down in Tampa Bay, a 4-1 win. And given the circumstances, the quality of the opponent, and the injury situation that you guys are going through right now, I thought the most impressive win of the season from your group. What did you see from your vantage point that led to that, and how do you guys go about replicating that sort of effort today against the Panthers?
Well, that number one, that's a good point about replicating. That's the point we're trying to stress. And we can even go back. I'm trying to think how this all went. This is what happens sometimes during the season when you get on a long road trip. You kind of forget what day it is. You forget where you're at.
That's right.
Where you've been. But no, even the 6-3 game against Tampa, it wasn't as good as the second game. That I'm talking about, the 6-3 game that we lost. But there were a lot of good things throughout that game as well. And then even the Carolina games, there were some good things. So we were trending the right way, and you want your guys to get rewarded for their efforts that they've been putting in, and the guys finally got rewarded for it. So were we perfect? No, and I think it's an imperfect game. You're never going to get that. You're playing against good teams, good opponents. They're well coached, so they're going to have their pushes through games. But the young guys have really been providing some good energy. And we've had new guys on the back end. We've had new guys up front. I think the veteran guys have provided some good leadership at times, throughout, where we've been able to, if things are coming off the rails a little bit, they've been able to kind of corral that and get that back in line. So we've been getting contributions from everyone. Our goaltender making some big saves, defensemen, and that's what you really have to do, in situations like this and going up against teams that are very good. And we're going to see that again tonight with the Florida Panthers. So a lot of good things. I think we have been trending, so it gives you some reasons to be excited about the group and we had a good practice yesterday, really good energy on the ice. There are certain things I think as a coach that you can feel. Walking into a locker room, you can feel when things aren't necessarily right, and then I think you can feel sometimes when the things are feeling right. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to translate into anything tonight, but I think as a coach, it gives you that good feeling that, again, trending in the right way.
Todd, you brought up some guys that are coming in on the back end, obviously due to the injury situation that you've been dealing with. And I want to ask you about two, in Jeremy Davies and in Alex Carrier. What stood out to you about them and their game so far with some of these young players that you've seen on the back end?
Well, number one, they've both fit in, nicely. They both have stepped right in, and they haven't necessarily looked out of place. They've had moments where, whether it's experience or talent, maybe just getting there, but they've both done a really good job. Davies, really smart puck moving guy, sees the ice very well. Has no problem getting around the ice. He got exposed a couple times, but that's going to happen with young players and guys getting their first taste in the NHL. And you're playing against, guys that are 30 years old. And let's face it, Tampa Bay, they won the Stanley Cup last year, so they're a very good team. They know what it takes to win, and they're playing really good hockey right now. So they can make you look bad at times, but Davies fit right in. Did a really good job, provide some good offense for us. You can see that there's some ability there. He's got some good deception, whether he's shooting or passing. So he's done a really good job coming in. And then Carrier, I would say much the same. Good energy, great skater, really competitive in the corners and the battles, things that you want to see. And again, for me, the things that get me excited, he seems to have an offensive instinct of opportunities when to use his speed and his energy to beat guys up the ice or to get up and join the rush. And, he's competitive in his own zone. And, he got his first NHL goal the other day, which was great for him to see. But if you go back and you rewind it, that's what we do as coaches. All we do is constantly rewind tape. And, when you go back to see how that whole play started, it started with him and finishing a check. And then, what you're trying to teach guys in our game today is, those first three steps, getting either direction, whether you're working up the ice or working back the ice, are so important. And he does a good job of that. So excited for both guys to be part of this organization.
Predators assistant coach Todd Richards has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Todd, really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, and good luck tonight against the Florida Panthers.
Thanks for having me, guys. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Todd Richards, the Predators taking on the Florida Panthers tonight at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. And speaking of the Nashville Predators, make sure you're tuning in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click and win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you here in about an hour, so make sure that you're tuned in for that. When we come back, it's time for a little NCAA tourney talk. We're going to preview the South region of the bracket with the tournament officially getting underway today. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Looking ahead to the NCAA tournament and also streaming live. Periscope, Twitch, YouTube. Lots of participation this morning on the Periscope feed. Lots of comments. YouTube as well. So looking forward to continuing to show off our beautiful faces here for the world to see.
Sorry I missed the Todd Richards conversation, by the way. I wasn't trying to duck Todd Richards.
I know.
I had a very important phone call related to the discussions we're having.
All righty.
So we can get into that a little bit later.
We'll get into that a little bit later. A little bit of tease there on your part. Joe, the NCAA tournament officially beginning today with some play-in games happening this evening. But right now, looking ahead to the South region in the NCAA tournament. We've looked at the West. We've looked at the East. Now looking at the South. Number 1 seed Baylor in the South. The 2 seed in this division is Ohio State. And then the number 3 seed in this part of the region, I've just lost my bracket. Who is the 3 seed in this region?
Oh,
it's Arkansas, and I've got them going in the Final Four, by the way. There's a tease there for you.
Get your Final Four team figured out.
Am I crazy for having Arkansas going to the Final Four?
I don't think you are. I really considered them. I think Baylor is probably, other than Michigan, probably the 1 seed that's most doubted. I think, I feel like, I know that like for all of us at The Athletic, we all had like Gonzaga, Illinois, at least in the Final Four. I think Baylor is one of those teams that, they don't have star power. They don't have like a bunch of sure thing NBA guys. They've been really good. But teams like that also, I think, do well this time of year. They're old teams with veterans who have great chemistry. The weird thing about Arkansas, and the impressive thing, but also maybe the thing that might scare you away, this is a super transfer-loaded team.
Yeah.
It's transfers galore. And, obviously they've done a really good job. Now they have a freshman, Moses Moody, who might be a top 10 pick. He is an absolute player. And they've got a lot of talent, athleticism, shooting. Love how they play. I think Ohio State is a legit option here too, as the as the 3 seed, as the 2 seed in that region. But yeah, Eric Musselman. Nate Oates is sort of the toast of the SEC.
Yeah.
With what he's done. But man, Eric Musselman's not too far behind. He's
great name,
awfully good. Musselman,
yeah.
Musselman.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah. Did really good things at Nevada, of course, before this. So, yeah, I don't hate that pick. I don't hate that pick for you. I'd tell you what I love is that Arkansas Colgate, and this is going to be 11:45 Friday on True TV. That game's going to be like 90. Take the over on that one.
So
I told you what to take the under on. Take the over on that one.
As confident in you as you are with UCLA and Michigan State going under, you are that much more confident with Arkansas and Colgate.
I can't imagine that game doesn't go that way. So yeah, I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
So we've looked at the 5-12 matchups in all of these regions so far, but maybe the 5-12 matchup getting the most pub out there, or certainly, I guess at least from most people I talk with, the most likely upset would be Winthrop as the 12 over Villanova. Now, Villanova dealing with some injury problems right now as well, and Winthrop, what are they, 24-1 on the season? So obviously
That's right.
Very good this season. Now, the quality of competition is what it is for Winthrop. But what do you think of the possibilities as you look at all the 5-12 matchups in this NCAA tournament? Is Winthrop the most likely upset when it comes to that matchup, which it feels like we see a 12 upset of 5 every single year in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, my only concern is just that everybody picks it.
Yes.
So I remember, 16 years ago, Michigan State was a 5. Everybody picked Old Dominion to beat Michigan State, including me. Because they were a really good team, but they had struggled. They'd blown it in the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State goes to the Final Four, handled Old Dominion. There's a lot of examples where everybody's sure something's going to happen, it doesn't. But Villanova lost Colin Gillespie. I'm counting on a lot of my scouting here. I must give a nod to Kyle Tucker. He scouted like every team in this tournament at The Athletic. So here's a great stat from him on Winthrop. They got this kid, Josh Corbin. He plays 14 minutes a game. He averages 13.2 three-pointers and 5.6 made three-pointers per 40 minutes. Now, that is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous number. Also, that's the type of team that gets the upset, the team that can bomb from three. They also have the leading triple-double dude in the nation, Chandler Vaudrin, 6'7", senior point guard. So
why does he not play more than 14 minutes per game?
He must suck on
if
defense.
He's making all those threes.
He must suck on defense.
He's got
right?
to, yeah.
That's what I got to think. But Josh Corbin.
The Mike Miller of Winthrop?
Mike Miller, great defensive player.
Well, he was a three-point specialist.
Yes.
Didn't get many minutes.
Miami Heat legend. He was not a great defensive player. I made that up. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. That's a good the shooting specialist, the Kyle Korver,
Jimmer Fredette,
if you will.
This is 2 days in a row we brought up Jimmer Fredette.
I haven't heard Jimmer Fredette's name in like 10 years.
Is it? It's not that long ago.
It feels like it.
Right?
Feels like it.
What year was Jimmer's magical year? Where is Jimmer?
I don't know.
Wasn't he a first-round pick?
So many questions
and then
about Jimmer.
He just kind of faded into oblivion?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't hang in the
He is
in the league
a
long.
basketball player for the Shanghai Sharks of the Chinese Basketball Association.
Okay. Shanghai Sharks. That's a good name. The alliteration. I like it. Now, what year was he the senior?
2011 National Player of the Year.
God, you're right.
So it is 10 years.
That's depressing. My
He's out
goodness.
there bombing threes for the Shanghai Sharks.
Thought it was like 4 years ago. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we can keep talking about Jimmer.
Yes.
Anything else about the South?
The Florida and Virginia Tech. How dangerous do you think Florida can be in this tournament? Because they've got the type of player in Trey Mann where if he gets hot, and I know they've got some deficiencies elsewhere, but if Trey Mann gets rolling, not very many people in the country are going to be able to guard that guy. He's a matchup nightmare, Trey Mann.
He is. He's 28 points in the second half against a really good Tennessee defense. I mean, if not for him, Florida was scored like 10 points in the second half. But, yeah, he's special. Now, they should be shorthanded because Omar Payne should be suspended by the SEC for this game. But apparently,
do we think that's going to happen?
Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it. This is just infuriating.
Someone brought up a great point on Twitter, and again, I just like normal, I forget who it was. So sorry, I'm not crediting you. I'll say I did it. To sound smart, but it might have been Cecil Hurt in Alabama. You've got the college sports. You've got a thing like Omar Payne who just obliterates a guy's face with a dirty elbow. And again, good for him for being remorseful after and all the way it was all handled after by both sides. But the bottom line is that gets nothing. But then in football, and I know you and I disagree on targeting sometimes, but you can get a sort of an inadvertent, hit to a guy's helmet and you're going to miss a whole game for that. Think about that.
There's not much consistency there.
Yeah. And obviously football is a different deal, just trying to make the sport safer and all that stuff. But you got to suspend a guy for a game for that play because you're also trying to deter dirty play. That's how you do it, by punishing people who make dirty plays. So Greg Sankey was here this week and kind of took a bow at center court after the game. Good for him. They got the SEC tournament in. It was a success. It's great to see sports going on in the NCAA tournament. I think they did a heck of a job all year to get these games in and everything. So now be a leader and suspend Omar Payne a game.
But if it hasn't happened yet, there's no reason for me to believe it's going to happen at this point.
I agree with you.
Unbelievable.
And again, it's so the argument against it, I think, from a lot of just general SEC fans would be like, well, hey, teams advance. I mean, this is big for your conference. Why would you want to shorthand one of your teams going into this tournament? And I get it, but you know what? Again, are you holding people accountable or not? And you're making another one of your member institutions angry, and they are missing someone. And by the way, I don't expect Fulkerson to play.
Yeah.
I don't expect Fulkerson to play this weekend. They're not going to say anything. They're going to say day to day, and he's not going to play tomorrow. I guess maybe could he play Sunday if they win, but I wouldn't expect it. So that's a big loss.
Yeah.
And two wrongs don't make a right. That's not what this is. This is what you should be doing when someone makes a play like that.
I agree 100%. The 8-9 matchup in the South region, two teams that you're not used to seeing be as low seeds as they are, which is North Carolina as the 8 seed, Wisconsin as the 9 seed. That's a very intriguing first-round matchup. How dangerous can North Carolina be in this tournament?
I think they can be pretty dangerous, and I just like them in this matchup. I just don't like Wisconsin that much this year. They haven't played all that well, really, for a while. There's an example of an old team, veteran team, that sometimes you can win in this tournament with those teams. I just don't think they have enough talent. North Carolina has good talent. They've been erratic, but I think they're playing better, and I think they could be dangerous. I think they could be dangerous to Baylor in the second round.
So I've got Arkansas coming out of this region, the South region in the bracket. Have you given thought to who you've got coming? I know you're taking this very meticulously.
Well, we had to pick our Final Four, and I did go with I went with Baylor. I went with the old veteran. You know, they're not dominant defensively like they were last year. Kind of their defensive numbers have kind of fallen off quite a bit, but their offensive numbers have gotten better. Regardless, I think they've got everything you need. They got great guard play, depth, and so I'm going with the Bears. But I feel probably as shaky on that one. It's same with Alabama, Michigan. Everybody's off Michigan now. I'm not convinced Michigan isn't going to get out of their region, but I feel shakier about that than I do about Gonzaga and Illinois.
When we come back, we will get back into the Tennessee Titans and introduce our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. This is Robby and Rexrode live from Wholesale Lake Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Titans. Got a lot to get to throughout the show here today. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, and now streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch at 102.5 The Game. So watch the show that way. Tune in with us, and you can see our beautiful faces.
Yeah.
Joe Rexrode's hair
They're somewhat
flowing in the wind.
They're somewhat hidden by the microphones, but I can kind of do this.
Mine's pretty wide open.
Again, I give people the option, for a segment a day. If you like, I can do this
Thank you. We appreciate that.
and not talk. So if you'd rather just watch
Some
me
people
and
would
not
rather
listen
you
to
not
me,
talk.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe you don't want to watch me, but you can't hear me that way.
That's right.
So you don't have to hear me.
At C Northside
Pick your
85 on Periscope says, so is this going live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, etc. going to be a long-term thing? I think
Yes.
so. It's going to be a long-term thing, folks. You can watch us every day.
Well, you know what they say about, they've been saying this about television since the 80s, sex sells. Okay?
Yes.
So when you're this sexy, how could you not make it a long-term thing?
That's a good point.
Sexy Rexy.
Yeah, buddy.
That's right.
Joe Rexrode, baby. Love it. That hair. You keep talking about, like, your hair kind of losing its steam a little bit. I think your hair looks great. From the Wombo app picture that I tweeted up yesterday, your hair looks the same.
Well, yeah, but that's in the front.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, on top, it's, hey, believe me, my kids make fun of me all the time.
I'd hate to see what they say to me.
Nice bald spot there, Joe.
A little bitty bald spot. I'm 28 years old, and I have no hair whatsoever. So take that for what
You're
want.
not as bad as Ryan Getzlaff.
That's true.
See, but again, like, I would love to just have a shaved head. Now, I would love to have that option. But my skull is weirdly, it's just like, again, let's go with family making fun of me. They've all left me behind this week by myself with the dogs.
Yes.
Like, my wife calls me a pinhead, and also that I have a Bert head, like Ernie and Bert.
Yeah.
Like I
can
have
see that.
like Bert's head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her side of her family and like our kids, 2 of our kids anyway, have like massive skulls, which is great when you get hurt.
Yeah.
It's protection. Like my middle kid, Brennan, I mean, talk about a skull, but I have this Bert head. So if I didn't have hair, I mean, what would I do?
Be a monster.
Yeah, I'd be hideous. I would not be beautiful.
Like
this.
Sloth from the Goonies.
Yeah, kind of.
Hey. What a movie. At C Northside 85 on Periscope says, as long as Rexrode doesn't sing, then we'll all be good. I don't know. I kind of enjoy your singing.
Yeah, I can't promise
Back when
that.
football season happens, when it comes back, we'll have some more songs about the Detroit Lions. That's for sure.
A mighty team that will not yield.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're telling me that's not a pretty voice?
It's beautiful.
Sex sells.
Sex sales, that's for sure.
I'm a regular Cardi B up here.
Yes, you are. Right now, talking the Tennessee Titans, and Joe Rexrode, as he normally does, just had an excellent idea yesterday here on the show, talking about the number 1 seeds of the Tennessee Titans that are facing pressure in 2021. So in honor of the NCAA tournament this week with the 1 seeds that we've talked about on the brackets, now the number 1 seeds of Titans that are facing pressure heading into this next season. And that is the subject of our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. And today's question is this: which member of the Titans do you think is facing the most pressure in the 2021 season? And the options are Vrabel, John Robinson, Ryan Tannehill, and Bud Dupree. 119 votes are already in the last 10 minutes, so people are responding very well to this poll. John Robinson with 44% of the vote. Mike Vrabel, 41% of the vote. Ryan Tannehill at 8%, and 7% say Bud Dupree. So not much pressure on the new guy from Titans fans up until this point, even though he's making $16.5 million per year.
Yeah, so so I don't like this poll. I'm sorry. I tried to argue against
Porth?
this.
You were on a run, and it's over.
But Porth went with it anyway. I don't think John Robinson should be in here. He's going to win Because, like, John Robinson right now is the one seed. He's the overall one seed. It's him. This is his time. Like, to me, I guess my question is, in the 2021 season, when John Robinson, he's going to sit with us in the press box and say, gosh, I hope they're good. Like, he's already put the team together. You understand what I'm saying? You didn't want to listen to me.
Sure, but the roster moves that he makes this offseason and whether or not they succeed or fail is on John Robinson.
Right, but I thought of it in terms of your performance in 2021. Who has the most pressure to perform? It's not him anymore. See what I'm saying?
It is right now.
It is right now, but we're not talking about right now. Or are we? Because right now...
The whole year of 2021.
What is Bud Dupree? Like, Bud, you better do some curls. Like, I mean, it's...
Well, he better be doing some curls.
Well, right. I mean, like, Vrabel, you know, got some interesting stuff on that later, by the way.
Yeah.
But I guess to me, I would separate the question because, yes, and there's another question you could take it to is who's more pressure, Vrabel or Robinson. I think that's another, but that's overall during the course of a year. In the season, the GM, like the barns in the hay, right? Is that the saying?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well,
the
probably
GM
the hay's in the barn, not the barns in the hay, but yeah.
Oh, my God. Yes, thank you. The hay's in the freaking barn. Yeah. Now I had a point. Now I've lost it.
Got a comment on Periscope that says, Ferk is facing the pressure against my expectations to be an all-pro tight end number 1. So Anthony Ferk's a lot of pressure on him.
Is this Kenston saying
This is not Kenston.
Okay.
People love Anthony Ferkster, man.
Hey, it's good that
Ferk.
Yeah.
it's good for him to be back on the team. So how about this? We could also separate this. I know we're doing 1 seeds. What if we did? And I mean, the poll question's out. It's over. You know, vote away. Vote. It's a flawed
Keep
question.
voting.
It's a flawed question, but you still should vote. That's fine. But
Can't win them all.
Yeah, you know, you've been on a good run. But what if we did just players? What if we did just
Okay.
players? You know.
Well, let me ask you this. Ryan Tannehill is on this list. Do you think, just based on the position that he plays at quarterback, that he's automatically a 1 seed with pressure?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. And also, look, the texter yesterday who was way not out of bounds on this whole, like, Tannehill's never actually won a playoff game, which is dumb. I will agree that he didn't play well. He didn't play well enough in the last game that they lost. So that increases the pressure on him too. There have been other quarterbacks in this league who have piled up great regular season stats and have not performed in the playoffs. And I think that was, it wasn't good enough from Tannehill. So from that perspective, I do think that. Now, look, I still think overall it's an incredible deal for them. He's really good. Titans fans should be thrilled to have him as their quarterback. But yeah, I think he's one of my 1 seeds as a player for sure.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caleb texts in and says, the whole team has pressure. It's 12-4 or bust next year for the Titans. Well, it's got to be 12-5 or 13-4.
Yeah,
You can't go 12-4.
Can't go 12-4 next
unless
year.
it's 12-4-1.
Yeah.
You get used to that dumb reality in the NFL. Yeah, well, okay, pressure on the whole team, fine, but we're trying to target things a little bit. So, I mean, I think Tannehill and Bud Dupree are easy choices.
Yeah.
Because Bud Dupree is the big ticket free agent, and he's being brought in here to totally transform this defense. Not all by himself, but have a big hand in transforming this defense. I think those are the easy player 1 seeds.
Well, I'd almost throw Christian Fulton in there as well. I mean, and a lot of this is the salary cap, obviously, but you've made the decision to move on from Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler. You know, Christian Fulton was taken in the 2nd round last year. He's going to be a starter out there in the secondary. He's got to play well, because if he doesn't, this team's going to have a huge problem out there in the secondary. I mean, Janoris Jenkins, I know people would say he's got pressure coming in here. I mean, to me, Janoris Jenkins just is what he is. He's a serviceable cornerback at this point. You need Christian Fulton to elevate his game pretty dramatically from where we saw it this time a year ago. I know injuries were a part of that story as well, but I think there's a ton of pressure on Christian Fulton heading into this season.
I think he's a good choice. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a possibility too, because you bring in Autry, and that's I think that will help. I love the Autry signing. It's my favorite thing they've done so far. But also, it's like, okay, so Jeffrey Simmons, now you've got a tag team partner. Let's see what you do with it. But I think Kevin Byard would be my third clear 1 seed here. Different secondary, different guy next to him as a starter. He's played a lot with the Monty Hooker. And look, I mean, we see what happens in this league when you sign a big contract, and if you play at a Pro Bowl level, then teams are probably going to keep you. And if you don't, then it can change real fast on you. So, I mean, to me, I look at this year as like Kevin Byard cementing himself with this team long term, honestly, because it's a big number. And I think I know he's looked at it like picks, and yeah, you got to make plays and get picks. But I think in general, you just have to be a more impactful player than he was last year.
So who on the Titans, in your opinion, is facing the most pressure heading into the 2021 NFL season? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll continue to discuss that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. The Game Bracket Challenge is back. Sign up and play now for your chance to win great prizes now that all the teams have been selected. Go to thegamenashville.com and fill out your bracket for a chance to compete for those great prizes. The Game Bracket Challenge is brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Cool Springs Wine and Spirits, European Collision Repair, and Coach's Corner Sports Grill. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, and asking the question, who on the Titans is facing the most pressure heading into the 2021 season? Matt from Camden texts in and says, I think J-Rob and Vrabel should be lumped together since they choose the coaching staff on D over the players. So, as we've talked about throughout this process, both with the salary cap and just based on some of the decisions they've made as well, I think it's become clear that John Robinson and Mike Vrabel and the Titans put more of the blame on the defense last year on the player side of things than they do on the coach's side of things. What do you think of Matt's idea there that they should be lumped together because of that decision?
Well, yeah. But is that different than any other NFL team?
No.
Coach, GM. Rob, that's my trademark, and I'm going to sell T-shirts someday if they win a Super Bowl. Rob is one entity, all-powerful entity. Not quite as powerful as Sea Monster Tom Brady, but yes, Rob definitely considered together. I agree. Now, if we're going to do the one seeds here, so on players, I'm going Tannehill, Bud Dupree, Kevin Byard. I think I'll go Simmons, but I hear you on Fulton. I think Fulton is right there. Those would be my four.
Okay. Player-wise, I would go Tannehill. I would go Christian Fulton. I would go Bud Dupree for sure, based on the money that he's been paid and the expectation that he has coming in. I would probably go Jeffrey Simmons after that. I think there's a lot of pressure on Jeffrey Simmons this year. You've got Danico Autry next to you now. You've got Bud Dupree out on the edge. Jeffrey Simmons has been good. I still think there is another level that he needs to get to, particularly rushing the passer. Like, he made some big plays for this Titans defense last year, especially early in the season. You've got to sustain that now, and I think you've got to continue to grow on that. So, look, I know a lot of people love Jeffrey Simmons, and I think he's been really good so far. To me, there's another level that he's going to have to get to.
Well, the other part of that with Jeffrey Simmons is you don't want him to be the latest first-round pick that John Robinson is being criticized for.
Yeah.
You know, that we're having the debate next offseason of whether or not to give him the fifth-year option. Like, you don't want to be having those conversations with Big Jeff.
Right, and I think the main way that would happen would be health being an issue, but that is also part of Jeffrey Simmons coming in. He came in having torn his ACL. Because I think last year, there was a pretty big difference between Jeffrey Simmons early and Jeffrey Simmons late, and I think, again, we've talked about Dennis Kelly today missing practice. Jeffrey Simmons missed a whole bunch of practices too. So, got to be healthy, but that's in this league, that's a massive part of guys making it or not. Sometimes you just have busts like Kevin Dodd and Isaiah Wilson, but a lot of times careers guys can't handle the beating. So I agree. That's it's Simmons and Rashaan Evans, last two first-round picks left.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ron texts in and says, good morning, guys. I'm not sure he's under pressure, but I think Kevin Byard is due for a comeback year. This team needs his leadership. He disappeared since his 8 interceptions the year before. And, a lot of attention gets paid to the interception total for Kevin Byard, and deservedly so. He takes away a lot of passes when he is on his game, and I think he had 1 interception last year, and it came in garbage time against Chase Daniel as the quarterback. So take that for what you will. It's got to be a better season all around from Kevin Byard, not just in creating turnovers, but covering people down the field, defense in the running game, the operation going on around him. This is a big year for Kevin Byard in terms of his long-term future with the Titans. He's making a lot of money, and as we know, you could have some decisions to make if you're the Titans with all the money that they've signed with some of these guys on defense as they move forward. Now, you expect the cap to go back up, and that's something that'll be on your side if you're the Titans and other teams around the league. But I think a big year for Kevin Byard nonetheless.
Yeah, he's got the second biggest cap hit on the team. He got $15 million cap hit this year. That's more than Lawan, who's almost 14. That's more than Henry at 13.5. So that's a star. That's a star who elevates a defense. And again, I think Kevin Byard, I think it was a good deal when they gave it to him. I think he's been terrific overall. He's been a Pro Bowl level safety. I think going into last year, the question was, is Kevin Byard the best safety in the NFL? He's one of the few. That kind of play has to be part of this defense transforming in 2021. So if we did one seeds that included everybody, I'm not including John Robinson. You guys do what you want, Rob is.
You can't just go rogue here on the poll question.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm not. He's not in my he's now. This is now, and again, at all these Titans games, these guys are on the field and they're blowing each other up, and the coaches are screaming in their headsets. And John Robinson, like me, is eating M&Ms in the press box. Okay. So, I mean, now, granted, you still have to do your job as a GM in the season. You're making transactions, you're making moves, but the barn is in the hay, man. The barn is in the hay. So I'm going to go just during the season of 21, my 1 seeds. So Vrabel's obvious, right?
Sure.
And then Todd Downing is also for me. Okay. And then I'm going Tannehill and Dupree.
I thought you were going to go Shane Bowen.
I'm not going Shane Bowen. I'll tell you why. Because that's Vrabel.
But is Todd Downing not Vrabel too?
Yes, but Todd Downing is the new guy and comes with the. Now you can say this about Bowen, I guess, from last year, but Downing comes with the Raider fan saying he's the worst OC ever. I think that
it also comes with a really high bar that he's going to be compared to.
Exactly. And so he can come in, and there could be all kinds of different things that happen to hurt the offense, but he'll get blamed. I think with Bowen, if it goes bad, it'll be like, oh, great job, Vrabel, right? I mean, Bowen goes to Vrabel. Vrabel's tied to Bowen. You're right. He hired them both, but I think that the decision to do it how he has done it means less on Bowen, more on Vrabel. They're all under pressure. Like our texter said, everyone. One big, happy family of under pressure in the NFL.
Christopher on Periscope says, but is Simmons' success tied to who he has beside him on the line? You take away Jarrell Casey and teams honed in on Jeffrey Simmons. Theoretically, you're helped out on that front this year. Danico Autry coming in. I think that should help Jeffrey Simmons, but I think getting that help also raises the expectations on Jeffrey Simmons as well.
Right.
I think the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, like what he just said. We said that a lot too. So, okay, here you go. Just invested in a really good football player. Guy who makes plays, guy who has some nice pass rush from the interior, strong, disruptive. He should help. Danico Autry should be a real welcome sight for Jeffrey Simmons. But now, let's see what you've got.
Joe, you mentioned how Simmons was hurt down the stretch last year. He also didn't have Clowney next to him. So how much of Simmons struggling to be consistent was the fact that Clowney was not next to him, and how much of it was him possibly being banged up?
Now, when Clowney was next to him.
Clowney is now this.
Yeah.
Porth Clowney.
Porth Clowney.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were banged up. Like Daquan Jones is on that defensive line. Good player. He's been a good player for this team, for years, and got another deal and is going to – I'll be interested to see where he ends up, by the way. Maybe Daquan Jones ends up in the Jayon Brown situation, doesn't find a market, and comes back here
Could be.
on the cheap. I mean, I think he made like $7 million last year. They're not going to pay that, but yeah. I mean, I guess you could say Clowney going out. What about Vic Beasley? I mean, if only he had Vic Beasley out there. Poor eye rolled, by the way.
My eyes just rolled way back into my head.
We need somehow to have a split screen here.
I know, especially when he starts crying and laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, when he can't contain himself in there.
When the barn is in the hay.
It's more entertaining than us.
Yes, it is. So who's your number 1 seed with the most pressure, Porth? Is it Vrabel?
All right, is it strictly players or overall?
You do whatever you want. Rexrode's doing whatever he wants. You do whatever you want.
All right.
If you want to make all 4 John Robinson, go for it.
Number 1 overall seed with heavy odds in the sports book is Mike Vrabel for me.
Okay.
And that's not to say that his job is under pressure and that it's at risk, but the farther we go along here with Mike Vrabel as head coach, as I said earlier, the more it feels like it's his way or the highway. And if this team is just a 500 team next year, and a lot of it's because the defense doesn't improve, there are going to be a lot of Titans fans with pitchforks coming after Mike Vrabel. And I don't think he would get let go after another bad season, but it would put him on the hot seat going into 2022 if the defense does not improve after what comes across as his promotion of Shane Bowen to DC.
I agree with all that you said, but now let me ask you this, and it's hard to answer this because we don't know how it all would go, but whose seat would be hotter? if they have a losing record or just take a step back, or don't go to the playoffs next year, then going into 2022, whose seat would be hotter?
Vrabel or J-Rob?
Right, Vrabel. Which of the half of Vrabel?
That's why he's in the poll question.
Yeah, but that's not what. No, I've explained myself.
I would probably go Vrabel.
Okay.
Although, here's the thing. John Robinson fired Mike Mularkey after a playoff appearance and a victory to hire Mike Vrabel. This is John Robinson's guy.
Well, let me put it to you this way. What happens if Bud Dupree comes in and is just a total non-factor?
Well, that's why I qualified it. Like, how does it come about?
Right.
Because you can say he did that, and also he got to the AFC Championship game with Vrabel and won the division with Vrabel, and right?
Sure.
So,
I mean, that's why they're tied together, and that's why you're giving them the nickname of Vrabel.
Trademarked.
it really could be a good T-shirt.
Maybe you ought to do that. We'll continue this discussion when we come back, taking your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also, some interesting news about a new quarterback in the division as well in the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz making some noise already in his time in Indianapolis. We'll do that and talk about that coming up next as well. Right now, I got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and there's always that one team that ruins your bracket this time of year, and that's why I'm betting the tournament on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, because on FanDuel, your first bet is risk-free, and it doesn't matter if you're betting on a 16 seed or a #1 seed. New users get up to $1,000 in site credit back if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel's got odds on all the action with games day and night, an easy-to-use app, multiple deposits, fast withdrawals, and always-on promotions. Your next chance to win with FanDuel is only minutes away. And if that's not enough, FanDuel wants to make you a millionaire. Yes, you. They're giving away $1 million to one lucky bettor. New and existing users get an additional shot at the payout every day that you bet on the tourney. So if you want a shot at becoming a millionaire or even a thousandaire, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Just use promo code ROB so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. No purchase necessary. Restrictions apply for $1 million drawing. Risk-free offer for first online real money wager only. Site credit is not withdrawable and expires 14 days after receipt. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. And for problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Discussing the Tennessee Titans, we'll have Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, coming up in about 12 minutes or so make sure that you are ready for that. Taking your thoughts on the Titans all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Right now discussing the poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter, and today's question is this: who on the Titans, or which member of the Titans, do you think is facing the most pressure in the 2021 season? The options are Mike Vrabel, John Robinson, Ryan Tannehill, and Bud Dupree. Joe Rexrode, not a fan of today's poll question. Right now, Mike Vrabel, 44% of the vote. John Robinson, 43% of the vote. Bud Dupree at 7%, and Ryan Tannehill has dropped down to 6%. It's now the quarterback in last place.
Again, I just think Robinson spoils the sample. But it's interesting that it's so close between Robinson and Vrabel. If we could go back in time, we probably should do just a player one. Because, right, like the management / coaches, they're going to win.
You can put another poll question up there at Joe Rexrode on Twitter.
I think
you can do this.
Yeah, I think I actually did do a poll one.
You did?
Time. What was it about?
I think it was something Tennessee Vols related.
Hayes, Barnes?
It was, no, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was Tom Allen, and it was Lane
Kiffin
and Gus Malzahn. Yeah.
That's right. That I got a lot of response. Who won that? It was freaking Hugh Freeze, wasn't
it? Hugh Freeze.
God. Although, well, maybe now. Yeah.
Josh Heupel not on that list.
No, I'm getting hyped for Heupel.
I know you are.
Yeah, he was not on that list. But anyway, yeah, it's fine. It's a glimpse at how the fans think. Robinson and Vrabel are going to dominate. The two players are going to be left behind. And in this year, I guess you could probably look at some teams in some years and say a player is the person under the most pressure, but probably not often, right? I mean, for the most part, it's. I mean, I guess some years like a I guess what Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Patrick Mahomes last year was number one for the Chiefs because he just signed a gazillion-dollar deal or something like that.
Aaron Rodgers pretty typically under pressure.
Yeah, but don't you think we know what Aaron Rodgers is? So to me. LaFleur gets the job, and that's the guy under pressure because, you got to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Was Brady under pressure last year coming in at Tampa?
Brady.
Or was it Bruce Arians?
Brady takes pressure and melds it into a diamond.
Super Bowls.
Yeah. Turns it into rings.
Let's go to our text line.
He's never lost a game, I don't think.
I don't think so either. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland texts in and says, Vrabel is the easy choice here. His arrogance in not hiring a defensive coordinator, coupled with hiring his friends in Clowney and Gostkowski, makes him a prime candidate for the old hot seat.
Okay, the last part there. Come on. So you're telling me that the Titans brought those guys in because they're his buddies? I mean, come on, people. That's so stupid.
He played with Gostkowski.
Right. So it's not that Gostkowski is the most accurate kicker ever when they signed him last year. It's that or what was he, third ever? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's that they're buddies.
I fired him halfway through last season.
I mean, Vrabel's best friend is Luke Fickell. Maybe he should hire him away from Cincinnati to be his nose tackle.
No.
It's stupid. Yeah, we're right. You don't want that. I mean, the friend thing is dumb because Clowney. Is that why Sean Payton was making gumbo for Clowney in Houston last year?
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, look. Everything else that was said there, it's fine. I just hate that we turn it into this, hired or tried to sign his buddies. He's trying to win at football. He's trying to win at football. May not be doing it well enough with the choices on the defensive side of the ball, but the choices are for football.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texts in and says, could be some tension, might not be. Either way, J-Rob is setting Mike up to pass or fail as a defensive coach and a player's coach. I'm fine with it because we need to know if Vrabel is the guy before it's too late. So Ben yesterday talking about J-Rob not being the guy that can raise the ceiling for the Titans. He's lowered the floor, and now saying
raise the floor.
Yeah, excuse me, raise the floor.
Couldn't lower the
that
floor.
Floor
from 5
wasn't getting a whole lot.
27.
It wasn't getting much lower at that point. Barn's in the hay.
The hay's on the floor, barn.
Yes,
barn floor.
Yes, it is.
Ben is not a big fan of Ray Rob.
Ben's not a big fan of Ray Rob. Either one of them.
It's every day, Ray Rob sucks.
Yeah.
Well, people are upset, and it is. I got to think this is kind of unique for 11-5 division winner, right? But
that defense was unique too.
It was. Now, that's part of it. And also, I definitely see the parallels with the Titans and Preds in that you get close and then everyone's expectations go there. That's where they are. And so now, even if you're really good, if you're going the other way, people get upset quickly.
I want to talk about a situation going on right now with a new quarterback in the AFC South, Carson Wentz, coming into the Colts. And this tweet coming out yesterday afternoon from Les Bowen, who covers the Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, saying, quote, "So the Carson Wentz trade is now official. I'm told the Colts are doing a Zoom news conference with Carson Wentz on Thursday, but they won't be taking questions from Philly media." What do you think of that? If that's true, that Carson Wentz is doing a press conference today with the Colts, and he's not taking any questions from the media in Philadelphia on Zoom.
I think Titans fans should feel great about that.
I think they should
because
too.
It means Carson Wentz is soft as Charmin.
Yes.
That's just soft. I mean, I honestly, and I tell you what, if there's a media corps that could do it, the Philly media corps would be up there. I really hope some of them do fake names and put fake mustaches on and try to. I mean, come on, that's so lame.
I get it. Obviously, things did not end well in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz and the Eagles, and we know how difficult the environment in Philadelphia can be. But, dude, you're an NFL quarterback. Just get on the Zoom and answer questions, or don't answer them. If they ask them and you don't want to talk about it, just say no comment.
Well, exactly. You can do that, and plus, the way these Zoom things go, I mean, everybody gets a question. I mean, I guess with Vrabel on his pressers, you get around to some people have follows. So you might get a second question. It's not like a real press conference where some people get 4 or 5 at times. And so it's a big group. You're probably going to get one question, and the moderator can still control it. All you have to do is just have the Zoom and be aware of the Philly media, and at some point you can't ice them out. But to come out front and say no Philly media, so soft.
I mean, I do wonder if that's a Carson Wentz decision or is this like a Colts PR department decision. But either way, it's really soft. And if it is a Carson Wentz thing, if I'm a Titans fan, I'm like, okay, that guy is super soft. Well, not worried about him at all.
If it's not him, he should be furious because
Yeah.
it makes him look bad. And so his new PR department just made him look ridiculous. So I would assume it's him. And like you said, hey, I'm not getting into that. Looking forward.
Yeah.
That's all I got to do. I mean, Marshawn Lynch had to show up for the Super Bowl media day.
And he did.
He did. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
That's
okay.
right.
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Or not say whatever you want. Yeah. I mean, you can handle it that way. There was a lot of chatter out of Philly towards the end of Wentz's tenure there that he didn't handle things well mentally, and things got to him that probably shouldn't have gotten to him as a starting NFL quarterback, and this is not a great look. I think physically you still worry about Carson Wentz if you're a Titans fan because we've seen him play at a high level before, but you've got to have some mental toughness in the NFL, especially at that position when you're getting hit as much as you are and you have so much responsibility. And this is just really cowardly. It's a press conference with media. They might say some mean things or ask you questions you don't want to answer. If they do, you move on with your life. Don't give it a second thought. It's really not that big a deal.
No. Yeah.
And now you're really drawing more attention to it than
exactly.
you would be if you just get there and answer the question.
What would we be sitting here talking about Carson Wentz today?
No.
Otherwise? No. But now you look like a clown. Hey, by the way, so Dan Pompei, you familiar with Dan Pompei?
No.
Well, Dan Pompei is one of the best writers in the NFL forever. Chicago guy, covered the Bears. He works for us at The Athletic. So I retweeted my last January piece about Vrabel with all the Woodyard, So Pompei tweets out the story. It's like Joe Rexrode beautifully explains what makes Mike Vrabel special. Does he think it's new now? Do people think the story is brand new now about Vrabel?
You're just throwing confusion out there on Twitter, Joe
I
Rexrode.
guess that's the problem with tweeting your old stories.
I guess so.
Just trying to look for some clicks.
That's right. When we come back, Speaking of clicks, it's time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, and you can guess the goal scorer for the game tonight for the Predators against the Florida Panthers. If you get it right, you will win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game.
And the score!
Who's going to find the back of the net in tonight's Preds game? Robby and Rexrode make their picks to click and welcome a listener to do the same. Pick to Click is brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, the official vodka of the NHL.
And it's that time of the day, time for Preds Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Nashville Predators taking on the Florida Panthers tonight at 6 o'clock. Pregame at 5 o'clock here on ESPN 1025 The Game. And the competition stands at this. The listeners have guessed 6 correct answers this season. Joe Rexrode is at 5. Ryan Porth remains at 1 correct answer. And Robbie Stanley remains at 0 correct on the season.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. But at least you got on the board the other day. It had been a while since any of the three of us had registered a point in this competition, and you're back on the board the other day with Ellie Tolvanen.
I mean, honestly, like, if I could give it to one of you guys, I would, just to make it more interesting. You know?
Now that we have streaming options, we may see people fight each other here live stream on the radio.
And we're recording it,
And
so
we're
we can
recording
post it
We
later.
tweet it out later.
Like that. Remember that Houston?
Yeah.
What were those guys' names?
I don't know, but they got into it. It'd be awesome.
That was good.
Josh Ennis was one of them.
There you go.
I can't repeat what one
Anything
was
they
calling
said.
the other.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully we can get to that point.
So now another edition of Preds Pick to Click today here, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in today's participant, who is Connie in Clarksville. Connie, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hi. As awesome as Philip Forsberg is, I really believe he's due to score today.
So
I'm going to go with Philip Forsberg. Yes, sir.
Connie selecting Philip Forsberg right out of the gate. A very popular selection here on the
And
program.
he's my guy, too.
I can see why. He is awesome, and I think he is due. Thanks for joining us, Connie. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Connie.
you.
And so Forsberg
Good call.
has been on a little bit of a dry spell from a goal-scoring department as of late, but still a very popular selection here in the competition. Connie in Clarksville going with Philip Forsberg today in the competition. And guess what, folks? It's Robbie Stanley's day for the first overall pick in this competition. At C Northside 85 on Periscope says, is Robbie going to trade his pick today? Might as well just go ahead and get it out of the way. See who I'm going to curse.
For 2 future picks?
Yeah, maybe. You know, Calle Yarncroke had 4 points the other day.
Stockpile picks and just pick the whole team on the last day of the year.
Yeah.
And then they'll get shut out. But still, it's a good idea.
I'm going to take Victor Arvidsson in the competition day. He gets one home the other day. He's been getting a lot of chances as of late. I think Victor Arvidsson scores in back-to-back games. Give me Arvy. It's been a while since I picked him.
Okay.
Sorry, Arvy.
On the Forsberg. On the Forsberg front, is he in one of his down stretches right now? It's so hard to judge this year with the lineup and everything. But that's what he's been, right? He's been very hot, and then he goes pretty cold for a while.
He does have 0 points in his last 3 games. So maybe so. But maybe he's just due to that point.
He is due.
I mean, you're still talking about 27 points in 29 games. It's pretty good.
No doubt. He was on an absolute tear earlier.
Joe Rexrode, the second pick in today's draft. Who are you going with?
Should I just take the last one every time until you guys get
just
within
pick somebody?
All right, I'll go Tolvanen. I'm just keep going with the. I'm gonna retweet that column too. My gosh, let me go find that one.
Yeah,
Eeli Tolvanen,
superstar
in the year 2021, will be awesome for the Preds. Tolvanen's on one, man. That shot is lethal.
It is.
I'll take Tolvanen every chance I get.
So you have got Eeli Tolvanen. I'm going with Victor Arvidsson. Connie with Philip Forsberg. Ryan Porth, you were up in the competition. Who is your selection today?
I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to take. I didn't know I was going to have the last pick. It was either going to be Forsberg, Tolvanen, and Arvidsson.
Would you like me to read off the roster? Calle Yarncroke still available. 4 points in the last game.
We just keep disrespecting Calle Yarncroke.
You know what? I'll go with last night's Smashville Live guest after Eeli Tolvanen, Ryan Johansson.
Okay. So still disrespecting Calle Yarncroke here on the program. 4-point game. Nobody selects him.
Yeah.
Ryan Johansson selected by Ryan Porth.
Guy's got 7 goals this year.
I know.
But hey, let's just ignore him. How was Smashville Live?
It was good.
Yeah.
Eeli Tolvanen.
That's all you got for me?
Eeli Tolvanen was really good about talking about his youth and how he came up with the shot that he has now and how much he practiced it with his brother.
And if you want to view or listen to the Smashville Live from last night, you can go to GameNashville.com/Smashville Live.
I feel even better about my pick.
Now that he's given
told his origin story, of course he's going to score the next day.
That is today's edition of Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Connie in Clarksville selecting Philip Forsberg. Joe Rexrode selecting Eeli Tolvanen. I'm going with Victor Arvidsson, and Ryan Porth selecting Ryan Johansson in the competition today. I have 0 confidence that I'm going to get this right, so we'll see how this goes. At this point, I'm seeing whether or not I can get to 0 the whole season.
Well,
so I'm not actively trying to.
I was going to say,
but it's trending that direction.
Maybe you need to start going Benning and Trennan, and although Trennan will get one here or there. You know, if you really want to. I mean, at this point, I think that would be more impressive.
0 the whole way through.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. If you pull that off,
I know.
I mean,
I cover hockey.
Hey, again, I promise you, my bracket will stink as it does normally most years.
So the Predators, and we had Todd Richards on earlier in the show, Predators assistant coach, talking about what I still believe, probably given the circumstances, the most impressive win for the season for the Predators the other day down in Tampa Bay. 4-1 against the Lightning. Calle Jarnkrok, 4 points in that game. And now this road trip that seems like it's never ending for the Nashville Predators continues on, taking on the Panthers tonight at 6 o'clock. 2 more games coming up against the Panthers. And then you've got the Stars again this weekend as well. So the road trip will finally be over after that. They'll be back at home next Tuesday night against the Detroit Red Wings. If you're the Predators, based on the roster you've got available to you right now, how do you go about replicating that effort against the Panthers? And with UC Saros now available for the Nashville Predators, you think he gets the start tonight against the Panthers?
Be my guess.
Pekka started, I believe, 7 in a row.
Yeah. I mean, they've had a rest, but still, give the other guy a shot.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? If he's healthy,
I would think
play
so.
him.
See what he's got left out there. Maybe you give him both Florida games. And then you've got Sunday, you got a back-to-back, so you're at Florida on Saturday, at Dallas on Sunday. So they're going to split those games, you would think, at that point. Maybe you give Saros these next 2 and let Pekka go on Sunday against the Stars.
Sounds like a plan, Coach Stanley. You're better at
I
projecting that than who might score in a game.
Apparently so.
By the way, John McClane from Houston, not from Die Hard, has retweeted.
Thank you.
Yeah, he has retweeted this Vrabel piece. So now it's like, look at this new awesome story about Mike Vrabel.
Jeez. You're just taking the NFL world by storm today.
Yeah.
Nate,
interesting timing.
Nate on Twitter says, does Forsberg need to shave the stash? I think it's lost some power. So 3-game pointless streak for Philip Forsberg. Is it time to shave the stash? I don't think so. I think you got to double down on it at this point and continue to grow that thing out.
Well, he can go a little Raleigh fingers with that stash, so I think you keep that thing. Now, Tolvanen,
probably for life.
Did Tolvanen still got going with his?
It's not great.
He might want to.
He shaved it.
Okay. Was it shaved last night?
Yes,
I was going to say that was some 7th grade peach fuzz going on with that guy.
Let's go back.
Score a goal tonight, Ellie.
Back to the text line driven by Wilson County.
Let that motivate you.
Tyler from Berry Hill texted and says, "Where's the love for Ekholm? Someone missed a chance for a winner. Ekholm another goal the other night. He's playing really well right now.
We're disrespecting him too.
He is kind of the forgotten man in this competition.
He's been picked a time or two, I think, right?
Yes. I picked him
probably
once.
not much more than a time or two.
I know. I picked him once and said he's going to play like 34 minutes. He'll be on the ice the most, and I think he got like 1 shot on goal in the game. It really is the Robby Stanley kiss of death in this competition.
It kind of
it's
is,
unbelievable.
Because a lot of your reasoning actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just never happens.
Just never.
You're just wrong.
Every time.
It's amazing.
So maybe Matthias Ekholm continues the hot streak tonight against the Panthers.
And then you'll feel bad that you didn't pick him.
I know. Jeez. Could be rough. But hey, maybe you get 2 wins in a row tonight. We've talked about you can't just go through this stretch here and lose every time against teams like Carolina and teams like Florida and teams like Tampa Bay. They struggled mightily against the Panthers at home a couple of weeks ago. I'm interested to see what happens here. It looks like in the Central, the top 3 are pretty much locked up. I mean, you've got Carolina, Florida, and Tampa Bay with some distance on people at this point. You look at the standings, and we had Matt Duchesne on yesterday for his weekly visit and talking about the 4 spot in the division being open. Chicago holds on to it right now at 33 points, and they've played 30 games. Columbus is starting to sneak up. They've got 29 points. Dallas starting to play a little bit better as well. And the Preds 8 points behind Chicago for that 4 spot. They're going to have some work to do at this point if they're going to find their way back into that race.
The fact that you're even entertaining it, I tip my cap.
Chicago's hit the skids a little bit as of late.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't buy them still. Maybe that's wrong. But I guess the fact that they're the team that occupies it, I guess you could look at it and say, well, someone's got to be there. I just don't think the Preds will be, but hey.
I tend to think you're right. When we come back, we'll dive back into the Tennessee Titans and revisit a conversation we had earlier in the show. Some strong comments made yesterday by former Titans linebacker Wesley Woodyard on the coaching staff and the dynamic between Mike Vrabel and the defense. We'll discuss that when we come back. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Also streaming live on Periscope and on YouTube and on Twitch. I give a wave to the nice people watching on the camera right now. Lots of beautiful participation today. Some comments. People are a big fan of the streaming. So you can do that every day here on Robby and Rexrode. You can watch us live on Periscope, YouTube, and on Twitch as well. We got a lot to get to for the remainder of this hour. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we talked earlier in the show about some comments made yesterday by Wesley Woodyard, former Titans linebacker, as it relates to Mike Vrabel and Dean Pease and that dynamic. Also, Mike Vrabel and how he's handled the defensive side of the ball. You've got some new information that you've learned on this that we'll get to here in just a few minutes, but I do want to first revisit those comments made by Wesley Woodyard when it comes to Mike Vrabel and Dean Pease and just how that dynamic has worked out and why Dean Pease has ended up back in coaching with the Atlanta Falcons down with Arthur Smith and not here with the Tennessee Titans as well. So here's what Wesley Woodyard, former Titans linebacker, had to say yesterday on with Darren Daunic and Chase.
Wesley, why do you think that Dean Pease unretired and went with Arthur to Atlanta and maybe didn't unretire and come back to the Titans after 1 year, and how surprised were you by that?
I was really surprised. Definitely, I think that again comes along to, that Vrabel wanted to be the guy that was calling the defensive plays, and Coach Pease was very well at proving himself. He's already proved himself. He's already been through this. So when it comes to why should I loosen up my play calling ability just so you can make play calls? Like, I'm going to be a great defensive coordinator no matter what. I don't need you stepping on my toes. And you can kind of see a little bit of those heads bumping during the games last year, and 2 years ago, I should say. And you could kind of see that uncomfortableness, with Coach Pease. And it was a shock to everybody because Coach Pease, he coached Vrabel. So you automatically think that, all right, you brought me out of retirement. I'm going to retire with you on top. We're going to go win some Super Bowls. We're going to be the most dominant defense we can, and I'm going to sell off into the sunset and enjoy my retirement. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
So that is former Titans linebacker Wesley Woodyard on yesterday with Darren Daunic and Chase, discussing maybe some bumping of heads between Dean Pease and Mike Vrabel. Used the word uncomfortable to describe that as well. What did you think of those comments made from Wesley Woodyard? I mean, you're talking about a former, not only a veteran player, a former linebacker for this team, also a former captain for this team as well on the defensive side of the ball, being pretty critical of the way that Mike Vrabel handled things with Dean Pease and handled things on the defensive side of the ball. What did you think of those comments? And then we'll get to some new information you have on that as well.
Well, I was surprised. The idea that, like Vrabel would, basically take play calling from Pease or something. I hadn't heard that, was surprised. I guess when you listen to exactly what Wesley was saying, I don't know if he quite went that far, but made it sound like there was some headbutting and maybe a little bit of pulling rank from Vrabel. So what segment was it? You were talking to Todd Richards. I wasn't not in the studio then because I disliked Todd Richards, just for the record. I wasn't trying to avoid that conversation. I was on the phone with a source, and trying to find out as much information about this as possible. So, look, this is one of those things that I think the next time Mike Vrabel talks to the media, which I assume will probably be
post-draft,
maybe pre-draft. I don't remember exactly how they do it, but it's going to come up. But I've been told that that Dean Pease called the plays in all the games that he's been the defensive coordinator that he was with the Titans. This is another good question for him, by the way. So I'll make sure to mention that to my Atlanta friends. It's and I think it's important to get that clarified because that is a big deal to me. If you, especially given what happened to the Titans defense with Dean Pease leaving, if you just took play calling from him, and then that's why he left, which is kind of the implication here.
And to be clear,
that's a story.
Woodyard did go on to talk about the AFC title game specifically and said the last time the Titans defense had an identity, I believe the date he threw out was January 11th, 2020, when the Ravens took on the Titans in the playoff game, and said in the next game Dean Pease basically wasn't calling plays in that game for the Titans against the Chiefs in the AFC title game.
Yeah,
so that's where that comes from.
We've talked since this, I think earlier in the show about, or maybe not this show. We talked about who had the green dot.
We did.
Woodyard?
We did.
It wasn't him, by the way. And for those who may remember, I had forgotten exactly how this went. Jayon Brown came back for that game. So Jayon Brown came back for the AFC Championship game. Woodyard was a big part of the win over the Ravens. He was not a big part of the loss of the Chiefs. Jayon Brown came back, got a starting job back, as he should have, and he had the green dot. So the green dot means, for those that don't know, then you're privy to some of those conversations with the coaches, and they talk to you. Or at least you get them talking to you. So Woodyard was not involved in, and of course, so Woodyard talked about the day the defense lasted was great. It was also the last time he started.
Yeah.
And he doesn't play in the Chiefs game, and he gets cut. So you can read this as Woodyard having an axe to grind. He has refuted that too. But I've been told Dean Pease called the plays. Now, I also was told that Vrabel put in a particular coverage for that game, a brand of quarters coverage, a cover 4 concept that was his idea. But again, like to me, that's not uncommon. That's
being a head coach.
Yeah, and I think Vrabel. I think like a lot of coaches, maybe more than some, but how fun would it be to listen to the headset? You're telling me Vrabel isn't constantly like trumping people and overruling people and stuff?
Probably a lot.
Of course. So also was told that like the relationship was fine last year, and Dean Pease there was a discussion about some kind of a role with the Titans, not necessarily the D coordinator role. When Dean Pease was D coordinator here, one of the things about him was, and we know that Dean Pease went to the hospital in Indy. Yeah. Obviously, he's an older guy. He went home early for the most part. That was a thing that they sort of talked about. Like, you got to get home, get your sleep. A lot of these coordinators in the NFL today, they're up till 4 a.m. ordering a pizza. It's a grind. That was so from that perspective. He had a different role than a lot of D coordinators in the league. So it would not. I don't think been D coordinator here. So he went to be D coordinator with Arthur Smith, and I think that was his plan. Once he kind of saw that Arthur Smith was on his way to having a head coaching job, that was his plan. Now, was Dean Pease angry with Vrabel or have some issue or just didn't want to work with him anymore? I don't know. It's a good question for him, and frankly, I wouldn't expect Dean Pease to come out and just say that,
right,
even if he was asked that directly. But I've been told from a good source here that the play calling was Dean Pease in the AFC Championship game.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texts in and says, Woodyard is just sour from not being on the Titans last year. I understand that response, and I'll be honest with you. When I heard some of the comments by Woodyard, the first thing I thought about was this is a guy who's got an axe to grind with coach. Now, I'm not saying he's made all this up because I'm sure that he feels a certain way about this, and there's no reason for him to sit there and just make everything up. It's not like he's got anything to gain from this at this point. But it's clear from his comments he's not the biggest fan of Mike Vrabel.
Well, and I tweeted out my story and I read some of the quotes earlier on the show, but I tweeted out, if you want to look at it on Twitter, which now people think is a new story, but whatever, from right after the win over the Ravens. I did a big story on Vrabel, like, why is it working? What is he doing? What is it like in here? And I got a lot of different comments, including from Wesley Woodyard, which is interesting. And if you read what he said about Vrabel that week, which is the week before he didn't play against Kansas City, he was a pretty big fan of Mike Vrabel at that point. And then obviously became not a fan. Now, could it be that he became not a fan because in his mind Vrabel had stripped Pease of his power and all that? Maybe. I agree with you. Like, I think Wesley Woodyard's a stand-up guy. Very much enjoyed covering him. I don't think he's out here just throwing like lies out intentionally. I don't know that he's accurate here though. And it doesn't really add up.
It doesn't. Well,
and it doesn't add up that we're hearing about it for the first time right now. If that happened,
exactly. And the AFC title game part of this makes no sense whatsoever because you got to think about what just happened. They had just come off their best defensive performance you could have probably ever imagined them having.
It was It was one of the Dean Pease best days on the job, and he had a great career.
He was great career, and he was outstanding in that game against Baltimore. And I get it. The Baltimore offense is much different than Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, and you're talking about, there's just only so much you can do against that Kansas City offense. But to think that Vrabel all of a sudden would go from what he saw in that Baltimore game to just saying, all right, now for this AFC title game, move aside, Dean. This is my show for this. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense from the moment I heard it.
Yeah, could it be? And this is really where I'd like more details from Wesley on why he thinks this happened. He wasn't privy to the conversations. Now, he was there during the week. But could it be that there were a couple big moments in the game where Pease was overruled?
Maybe.
You said earlier, started going poorly for that D. At some point, was Vrabel like, all right, let me take a crack at not stopping Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
maybe heat of the moment, that I could buy. This idea that, like you said, Pease has like a masterpiece, 14-2, MVP of the league, most unstoppable offense in the league, masterpiece plan, execution, shock the number 1 seed in the playoffs, and then it's like, Dean, thank you. Now
Go stand over there.
I really need a coffee, 2 creams, 1 stevia. It doesn't add up at all. And like again, Mike Vrabel lured him out of retirement, and it was a huge move for Mike Vrabel. And moving forward, it may end up that not having Dean Pease is a real bad thing for Mike Vrabel, but it does not make sense at all that he would have undercut him there.
We'll continue this conversation when we come back. What's your reaction to the news floating out there yesterday from Wesley Woodyard, his accusations against Mike Vrabel, and the way that he's handled the defense and the relationship with Dean Pease? Everything on the table on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Going to be joined by Hal Gill, Predators radio analyst, coming up at 9:30. We'll look ahead to tonight's matchup for the Preds against the Florida Panthers with him. Right now, talking Titans and taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also streaming on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We'll be doing that every day here on the show, 6 to 10 a.m., so you can catch us and watch us on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Twitter as well at 102.5 The Game. So your viewing pleasure. This is what we're here for. Joe Rexrode has dressed up every day, looks very pretty, and he's very happy with it, blowing kisses towards the camera right now. Joe, let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sam from the Borough texts in and says, I see Vrabel trying to be Belichick-like. He needs a few more years before he's able to do that. That's a popular talking point on the text line today, is the comparison between Vrabel and Belichick and how Belichick's got the skins on the wall and Vrabel at this point does not.
Very popular. Very. I get it. I do. I think it's funny because I think Vrabel, personality-wise, is very different from Bill Belichick.
Me too.
But, some of the – I mean, he's had, he came in and, some media access went down, stuff like that, so you immediately thought about that too. It reminds me a lot of, Jeremy Pruitt when he came in and was
oh boy,
no media, and also, calling out the fans for not filling Neyland Stadium.
For the spring game.
And I was like, dude, you're not Saban. Don't try to be Saban yet. When you win anything, then start acting like Saban. Until you've won anything, don't start acting like Saban. I don't think Vrabel is coming in and saying, I am Belichick Jr., but he does get combative in the pressers. There is that sort of, I don't know about holier than thou, but that sort of I'm smart, I'm right, you're an idiot feel. And again, that translates to the fans. So I think that's part of why people say that. Again, though, Belichick is just Mr. And I don't know if it's always been this way, but for as long as I can remember, whatever.
On to Cincinnati.
Yeah. Vrabel shows a human being side more than Belichick. But, hey, you're going to always be compared to Bill Belichick, even though he wasn't technically in his coaching tree. He's a Belichick guy. He's one of his great players. So I understand why people go there.
1 week we're going to stink, and this guy sucks, and then I suck.
God, I forgot. That was a great press conference.
Great press conference. That hurt the team.
Yes. See, look, he does have a little bit of personality.
That was when he was
You're not going to catch Belichick doing that.
That was when he was holding that grudge against me for the Brett Kern stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Double reverse. That's another T-shirt. What is it? Double reverse to Brett Kern.
BrettKern.com. Against Devin White. See how that goes.
All you got to do is outrun Devin White.
Come on, Brett.
One juke. Come on, put your shoulder into him.
At Monsoon Monaghan on Periscope says, Vrabel just needs to be a head coach and help select the players. Clearly, he's not great at calling plays. I believe Vrabel had a tough time as DC in Houston as well, right?
Yeah, and that's another – I've always put a big asterisk on that one because, all his best players were hurt that year. But they were, I think, 30th in total defense. They were bad. They were incredibly banged up. They were bad. It was 1 year, and that was, I believe, he got – there were other teams trying to hire him away from Houston is what was going on, and it's eluding me right now who, but they basically elevated him to take Romeo Crennel's place as DC, and it didn't go well. And so people are anytime it's fair you point at that and say, well, when you were DC, it was not good. Of course, he still gets all these head coaching interviews and a head coaching job after that. I do think that season is hard to judge him on.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi from Dixon texts in. It says, Robinson should offer Woodyard a contract. Someone standing up to the coach may be a game changer for his attitude, but I'm admittedly petty. So I guess Heidi's not a big fan of Vrabel.
So because you are willing to go in media and talk a little trash about someone, come on back.
Contract.
Can he run still?
No. Did leave the door open, though, that he's not retired yet from the NFL. Said if he doesn't get a call soon, maybe that changes and he gets into coaching. But
maybe the Colts should sign him to go get some revenge on the Titans, and then not let any of us into the press conference.
Or maybe the Ravens, so that way when they're stomping on the logo and they meet at midfield, it could be Vrabel and Woodyard.
Oh, there you go.
Could be on to something there.
There we go.
This whole thing has just been fascinating because we've talked a lot, and most people connect the dots with the Shane Bowen decision. That's where this conversation, I feel like, really began this past year, with the stubbornness and that word being tossed around with Mike Vrabel, sticking with Shane Bowen, voicing his support for Shane Bowen, and doubling down on him to be the defensive coordinator this next season. Obviously, a lot of Titans fans don't like that move, and they don't like the idea of Shane Bowen coming back as the DC next year. Look, this Woodyard thing, I think, has just kind of reignited some of that and talked about the stubbornness. And look, I don't think there's any way to deny it. Like, looking at Mike Vrabel and how he's built and the way that he handles some things, I mean, there is a degree of stubbornness there that there is, I think, in all coaching aspects when you're a head coach in the NFL level. I think maybe him a little bit more than some other guys around the league as well. But we've talked about this before this conversation even came up. Like, at some point, you're going to have to be able to adapt if you're Mike Vrabel, and you're going to have to be willing to admit when you make some mistakes. And it's interesting because you brought up a piece that you wrote a couple of years ago, or right after the Ravens game, where Wesley Woodyard is talking about Mike Vrabel and talks about, hey, he'll come in there, and when things go wrong, he admits the mistakes that he makes. So it's funny because we've gone from that being the talking point about Mike Vrabel after the Ravens game in the playoffs a couple years ago to now everyone talking about how stubborn Mike Vrabel is and he's not willing to change.
Let me read from the selection from Wesley Woodyard. I'll read you the exact quote. And there's some really strong comments from a lot of people in this story. But, it's pretty amazing. And I when I clicked it up, I'm like, did I talk to Woodyard for this? Like, oh, yes, I did, actually.
Yep, yet another shameless plug from Joe Rexrode.
There you go. Anyway, you paraphrase it. It's too long of a story. I'm going through this thing, and I can't find the quote.
We've learned you write very lengthy stories.
Here we go. Yeah, well, yeah. Got about a 2,000 word on Renaya Davis right now, by the way. Here's a quote from Wesley Woodyard. This is a couple days after they beat the Ravens. Quote, he's apologized a few times this season, or not necessarily apologized, but, hey, guys, that's my fault, that's my bad when things haven't gone well. And as a player, it's, hey, our coach is owning up. It's not just us messing up. I'd like to think that's common, but in a lot of cases it's not. Some coaches want to hide their hand and be like, hey, I did everything I was supposed to do. My players didn't get it done. But here, it's all about everyone in it together. No splintering. You mess up, I mess up. The point is, let's get it fixed and get it right.
No splintering. So that was 1 week before the AFC title game where Woodyard's making these comments.
I mean, like, strong comment in support of Mike Vrabel. And, like, basically, like, the exact opposite of – not the exact opposite, but it's very contrary to what he's said in the last day.
Yeah, which, again, just doesn't add up. I mean, when you factor in Jayon Brown coming back in the game the next week, he's the one wearing the green dot. And that just makes no sense for Mike Vrabel to just all of a sudden take over the play calling in the AFC title game. Like, those two things just don't add up.
Again, within the game, an overrule, an argument. Okay, I don't doubt that. I mean, at some point
that happens.
Of course,
the over/under is probably 20 times in a game where that happens across the league, though.
Right. And in that game, when it became pretty clear. I think they forced a punt early, but at some point in that game it became pretty clear.
Doesn't matter what you do.
By the way, they had a great plan. From my vantage point in the press box that day, at least in terms of taking Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce out of the game, they managed to do that.
And then Mahomes ran wild.
Yeah, then he runs around, and then Sammy Watkins goes. That day when you're getting torched, and eventually it's like, okay, we can't keep up with this team. I'm sure there was some frustration and conversations, but. Yeah, if anyone took out of that during the week, Vrabel's like, Dean, thanks, but no thanks. That's
just doesn't make sense. When we come back, we'll switch gears and dive into the Nashville Predators. Preds radio analyst Hal Gill will join us. We'll look ahead to the matchup tonight for the Preds against the Florida Panthers. And speaking of the Nashville Predators, 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to help you continue the tradition with a hockey home gating party, and it's time to text into the game line at 615-737-1025 for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate. You can watch a weekend Preds game with a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. Just text the word GAME to 615-737-1025. That's GAME to 615-737-1025 now to enter. The winner will be contacted on Thursday, and you must be 21 or older to enter. We'll be right back with Hal Gill here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Looking ahead to the Nashville Predators taking on the Florida Panthers tonight at 6 o'clock. Pregame here at 5 o'clock on ESPN 1025 The Game. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Preds radio analyst Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Skillsy, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just enjoying. It looks like spring outside.
I know. It is nice. That warmer weather starting to come around. Also, some warm weather where the Predators are right now as well. Down first in Tampa Bay this week, now in Florida for the next 2 games. Skillsy, let's start with the game against Tampa Bay the other day. A 4-1 win for the Predators. Calle Jarnkrok, 4 points in that game. I thought, given the circumstances with the injuries this team has been dealing with, and then the quality of competition going up against the defending Stanley Cup champions, maybe the most impressive win of the season for the Predators. Do you agree with that, and why were they able to be so successful down there in Tampa?
Well, I think they stuck to their system, to their game plan. I think they were, Coach talks about playing 5-man D, having everyone involved. With, of course, with Yossi and Ellis out, you can't just expect them to go get a stop for you. You got to have 5 guys involved, and I think they did that. And with 5 guys going, you wait for your chances. You playing defense, you wait for your chances offensively, and then you have guys stepping up. You look at Jarnkrok and Tolvanen and stand out as they're making plays happen. And if you sit back and play good defense, and you have players that make plays, then you win games. And that's what they did against Tampa. It was impressive, though. I was impressed.
Well, you mentioned Jarnkrok, Robby. So we talk about Jarnkrok a lot on here. No one ever takes him on Preds pick to click, but 4-point game, 7 goals this year. Is this a different Jarnkrok, Hal?
I think just opportunity is. I always feel bad for Yarny because he's the guy that's like, we need someone to fill in on the 4th line. Goes there, and then you say, someone's hurt on the first or second line, so we'll just throw him up there, and he'll play center, he'll play wing, he'll kill penalties. If we need him, we'll put him on the power play, but he's never really been given a one, just kind of does everything, which is the guy to have. But he hasn't been able to get into a rhythm and play with the same guys over and over again. He's kind of been a little bit of an afterthought. So now they need him, and he's stepping up. You need someone on that second line that can go and grind, and I really like the way he's playing with Gronlund and churning it out. Put him on with Arvidsson. Now you have someone that's pushing the pace, and you have a couple playmakers and the guys that can drive and push the pace in the game, and you're seeing some success from him. So it's nice to see because he really does everything well.
Hal, what stood out to you so far about Jeremy Davies and Alex Carrier? Obviously coming in a tough situation with injuries on the back end and having to play probably in elevated roles at this point. What have you made of those two coming in on defense?
I've been real impressed with those guys. It's hard when you have one guy coming in, a young guy coming in, doesn't really know the NHL game. You can kind of hide them. When you have 2 guys that you need to put in, there's not a lot of spaces to hide them. So these guys are exposed. They're put out there. And coach is saying, hey, I can't protect you. You're going to have to play against big lines. You're going to have to play some bigger minutes. We're not going to just spot you in here and make you feel comfortable. You're going to get thrown to the wolves. And I really think they've stood up. Carrier, I love the way he plays the game. He reminds me of the way Ellis plays. He's simple. He's got good movements, good hips, always stays squared up to the play. And I like the way he's playing defensively. And then he's obviously adding to the offensive side. But
I think we just lost Hal Gill on our phone line there. But I've been also impressed with Jeremy Davies and Alex Carrier as well. We'll try to get Hal back on the line here in just a few minutes. I think Davies in particular, like the way he moves the puck, to me that's going to be a weapon on the power play for a long time as they move forward. Like, he's probably not ready yet to be a full-time NHL player, and in a perfect world would probably still be getting some good experience in Chicago at the American Hockey League level. But I think just purely based on his skill set moving the puck on the power play, pretty impressive so far.
Yeah. I think a lot of these young guys have shown flashes or more, this season, which is kind of what people were hoping for from the start. It's taken a while, but one reason or another, a lot of those guys are out there now.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome back Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, I want to talk to you about UC Saros coming back. John Hines announcing yesterday that he will be available for the Predators moving forward here. How would you handle the goaltending situation for the rest of this week? Pekka obviously playing a lot of games in a row. Do you want to see Saros thrown back in there immediately? And what do you want to see from Saros as they continue to move ahead in the season here and get him more starts coming up down the line?
Yeah, it's a tough balance right now. I look through the team and you say, all right, who could we afford an injury at goal? That's the one spot. Pekka's been phenomenal. I think he's played really well against some pretty good lineups. So I don't know. I think John Hines would love to get Saros in to get him back into it so they can try to get a hot goalie going forward. But I don't know if Pekka Rinne isn't the hot goalie right now. And is it his job to lose, or do they want to try and rotate him through because there's a lot of hockey coming up? So it's going to be a balancing act for sure. But I do think that Hines wants to get Saros a game, get him feeling good, and give Pex a little bit of a rest.
Hal, you been in a 9-0 game before? Or worse? What's that like?
You know what? I was thinking about it. As soon as it goes to like 5-0, it's just like you want to do whatever you can to get out of it, whether that's a fight or take a misconduct or whatever you can to run away from it. Block a shot with your face so you have to go get stitches or something, it's an awful feeling, and all you can do is go out there and battle through it. It's a lonely place to be.
But on the flip side of that, that's when you pad stats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, hey, let's everybody eat tonight, right?
It's cookie night. I will tell you a good story. Good story. I went over to a guy, we were losing, and it was a same situation, 5-0. I said, let's go. You want to fight? Let's go. And he looked at me, a straight goon, and he looked at me and he goes, buddy, it's cookie night. I'm not fighting you. It's cookie night.
It's pretty good.
That hurts. That's hurt. I'm not going to fight.
9-0 after 2 periods last night. I was really hoping the Rangers would keep pouring it on and get to 10, 11, or 12 in that game, and they just kind of pulled back in the third period. That was disappointing, Hal.
Yeah, just keep hammering down.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Stats equate to dollars, contracts. So
that's right.
Hey, go ahead and get your cookies if you can.
You're exactly right. Preds radio analyst Hal Gill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and by TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, appreciate you time to join us this morning, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Hal Gill, one of the best in the business. I can't imagine, like, when it is in that situation, like, Hal is the perfect guy that I can imagine just being, screw this. I am done with this game. Let's fight. Let's get out of here. Let's move ahead to the next one.
Block a shot with your face.
Oh, what a legend. I was very disappointed, though, that they couldn't get it to 10. Like, I'm trying to think of the last time I saw a team get to 10 goals in the NHL. It's been a minute.
The Oilers almost got to 10 goals here in Nashville a year ago.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that's true.
It was close.
They were pushing toward it.
I was wondering if it was going to happen that night as well.
Didn't it end up like 9-3 or 9-4 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good night for McDavid and Draisaitl in that one. Well, that was the same night as the tornado, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for bringing it up, Porth.
Yeah. Thank you, Porth. We appreciate that. When we come back, we will continue to talk about the Tennessee Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Revisit our poll question of the day as well. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Yes, a little Blink-182 to bring us back in here on Robby and Rexrode. Joe Rexrode's favorite band.
So I got Max Herz in my ear telling me that my Cleveland Brown takes are bad, and then I get Blink-182 in my other ear.
Well, this is what you get.
Way to end the show.
This is what you get when you just trash the poll question. You were on a good run, and then you trash the poll question.
Hey, I played the Beastie Boys earlier.
Yeah.
No response. I played Blink-182.
Response.
You trash it.
I missed the Beastie Boys. What song?
Flute.
Flute Loop?
Yeah.
That's actually a great tune. And kind of a deep cut. I'm impressed. I'm sorry I missed it. But you ruined it with that crap.
Pay more attention, Joe.
Thanks to Hal Gill for joining us in the last segment. And speaking of the Predators, Preds fans, make sure you join 102.5 The Game on Wednesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. Every Wednesday, Smashville Live is on 102.5 The Game during the Preds season and will feature Preds players, former players, and other special guests. You can also watch the show online via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and thegamenashville.com. Smashville Live brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, and Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. To view or listen to past shows, go to thegamenashville.com/Smashville Live. And if you want to check out last night's edition of Smashville Live, Ellie Tolvanen and Ryan Johansson on the program as well. So you can check that out at thegamenashville.com/Smashville Live. Joe, let's revisit the poll question of the day that you have trashed up until this point. Today's question is this: which member of the Titans do you think is facing the most pressure in 2021? The options are Mike Vrabel, John Robinson, Ryan Tannehill, and Bud Dupree. 279 votes are in. 44% say Vrabel, 43% say John Robinson, 7% Bud Dupree, 6% Ryan Tannehill. Pretty close between Vrabel and Robinson.
John Robinson spoils the sample.
Would it be like 80% Vrabel if he wasn't in there?
Yeah.
That's not a very good poll question.
Well, you said it, not me.
No, I'm saying if it was just Vrabel, that wouldn't be a very good poll question.
Well,
it would be 85%.
Yeah, I think we can do more with this. I don't think we have to give up, or you don't feel bad, Porth. You should hold your head high after this show. Okay, I don't want you to feel down today. But I think we could do a coach one, and we could even do a coach front office one, and then do a player one. Because the players are gonna be way behind, as we've seen, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I think those are two good poll questions for other days. Okay,
You'll still criticize
it,
buddy, when the time comes.
He had actually been on a pretty good roll.
Yeah.
He has. That's true.
I'm fair.
Of being very complimentary of your poll questions.
Firm but fair.
Barnes in the hay.
Exactly. By the way, for Max, who came in calling my take cold, which again I don't get that either. Like a bad take is a hot take, right? What's a cold take?
Means it was never close to even making sense.
I thought a cold take actually meant like a good take. Like that's chill. No? That's not.
Maybe.
Wow.
Like that's rad.
I guess it depends on who you ask.
Like that's rad. That's tubular.
Tubular.
Well, listen.
A tubular take?
A tubular take. Listen, Max. Max thinks that so yesterday Cleavon Brown and Maxwell Evans left Vanderbilt, got in the transfer portal, and I said on Twitter, Cleavon Brown is the loss there, and I absolutely stand by that. Absolutely stand by it. Maxwell was a better player this year, but they don't have any bigs. So I win. You lose, Max. Bye.
You think the Max feels that way just because Maxwell Evans can also be called Max?
Probably.
Okay. Just wondering.
I think you've touched on the truth of the matter here.
This coming from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. Quote, interesting development in the wide receiver market. The Jets have been having conversations with free agent wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, sources say, a potential target in their offense. Despite having signed Corey Davis, the Jets may not be done adding playmakers. Smith-Schuster is one to watch. So what do you think about that? Maybe the Jets having some interest in Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, I actually have another little tidbit of information from a source. At this point, this is probably not what Titans fans want to hear, I would be on the surprise side if they sign at least a big-ticket free agent receiver, which would be like a Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yep.
So I think I think that it may well be two drafted receivers. Listen, now it's a good draft to draft receivers.
It is.
But I would still, looking at the whole picture of everything, I would still think that you'd want to go try to sign one of these guys. But I now feel less like they're going to do that. And I do think that Nick Westbrook-Akine is going to be a guy. He is a guy who has been targeted as someone they think is improving and can be a part of this offense. And that's not that big of a surprise based on what we saw last year. I mean, he was dropping everything in camp, and still they stuck with him. And they ended up being right. I mean, he did pretty well when he got opportunities. I think he's going to get more opportunities. And it's going to be Brown. It's going to be Westbrook. It's going to be Cam Batson and maybe 2 rookies.
You better hope A.J. Brown stays healthy if you're the Titans.
Well, yeah, and yes. Oh, no question. But, I mean, wouldn't that have been true anyway?
Sure, but, like, even more so. Like, even last year, like, if A.J. Brown goes down, I mean, at least you've got Corey Davis that you can throw the ball to. Like, right now, if he went down and if that's the way they end up going, you got 2 rookies and Cam Batson and Nick Westbrook-Akine. It's not quite the same.
Yeah. I mean, you better hope those rookies are good.
Really good.
Rondale Moore.
You're going to be a big proponent for him.
You know what?
Who can play?
I mean, look, I thought David Ross was going to be – or I'm sorry, David Ross. John Ross. I thought he was going to be awesome out of Washington. He hasn't done anything. Maybe the Bengals screwed it up. I don't know. So, and we'll see with Hamler out of Penn State. But those – you know, the Tyreek Hill model – and he's not exactly Tyreek. He's not that fast, but you're trying to find that guy.
Right.
I think Rondale Moore just might be a dude in this league who carves people up.
Joe, the NCAA tournament officially getting underway tonight with the first 4. And we talked about Michigan State and UCLA the other day, saying that you would hammer the under in that if you're a college basketball fan. Right now, the over-under in the UCLA-Michigan State game is at 134. What do you think about that? Does that make you nervous? Maybe they know something you don't.
Hit the under. That's a good over-under. Hit the under hard. And I know that UCLA maybe isn't great defensively, but that's Mick Cronin's identity. And Michigan State is very good defensively and very bad offensively. So I would hit that under hard. By the way, I've been invited to a new pool.
Really?
My son Brennan has started a pool, and the name of the pool is Brennan is the Best. So, awesome.
Yeah, I like the confidence. Is Brennan taking Michigan State? Make a deep run.
Oh, probably. He probably has them winning it all. Maybe this year just to the title game, not quite winning it all.
Well, the interesting thing there, though, is that it would be MSU/UCLA if he's already filled out his bracket.
Yeah. Yeah. You could get 2 for 1.
Is that how it works, though?
Yeah. If you fill out the bracket now, you're picking the winner of MSU, UCLA.
You get either one of them.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of help that way.
Blue Bloods.
Yeah. You think Michigan State wins this one tonight against UCLA?
I would pick them to win. I would pick them to win. Not trying to be a homer, but I would think so. And also, as you know, I'm
favored by 2.
As you can tell in my children's behavior, I preach humility.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'd take Michigan State in the under tonight.
Did the Titans do anything else today? Think there's any more moves coming?
Again,
cutting Rashawn Evans today.
Yeah, there you go. They still could cut Ben Jones.
Yep.
I now feel less like they're going to sign a receiver. I still think, and if you're going to draft 2 receivers, so what are you signing now? I think you got to sign another corner, right?
Yeah.
So I think on the receiver front, one of the sort of lower tier guys that I kind of like is Josh Reynolds, but on the corner front, I think they need to do something else. And, maybe they also draft that first, but I don't know. How do you feel about your depth in that room right now if you're the Titans?
You got to sign a receiver.
We'll see what happens.
I'm going to put it out there. I don't think they're going to. So we'll see if I'm right or not.
We'll see what happens on that front. That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. Darren Daunic and Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.